Chapter 201, The Illusion of Time. As they stepped away from the Tiando Great Soul Arena, Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling found themselves swallowed by the throng of Tiando City's afternoon crowds. Even at this hour, the capital of the Tiando Empire teemed with merchants, nobles, and spectators making their way toward the arena. Ye Lingling, once reserved and cool, now strolled with a spring in her step. Whenever they passed a vendor's stall, she would dart forward and press a treat into Cheng Xiao's hand: fluffy steamed buns, skewers of glazed fruits, or a colorful whirling toy that spun in her palm. Each discovery drew a delighted laugh from her, light and musical, as if the summer heat itself had turned to mist. Pausing beneath an overhang that offered a sliver of shade, Ye Lingling turned to Cheng Xiao, her eyes shining. "Thank you for spending the afternoon with me," she said, her voice warm. Cheng Xiao returned her gaze with a gentle smile. "Why? Aren't we friends?" "Friends?" Ye Lingling paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. Then she laughed softly and said, "Since we're friends now, why don't you join me for a walk?" Cheng Xiao returned her smile and nodded. Together, they wandered out into the busy streets of Tiando City, enjoying the warm afternoon and the lively market stalls. When their feet grew tired, they ducked into a small cafe that served chilled drinks. They claimed a table by the window, ordered 2 iced teas, and settled into easy conversation, trading stories about the quirks and joys of everyday life. As Cheng Xiao watched the crowd ebb and flow outside, something caught his attention. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted an old man in a white robe lingering across the street, his gaze fixed intently on him. The moment their eyes met, the old man turned and melted back into the throng. Cheng Xiao's heart skipped a beat. "It's him," he thought, though he kept the recognition to himself. Ye Lingling was completely unaware. He wasn't about to alarm her. Instead, he gently tapped the table. "Lingling, I'm going to grab some snacks. Stay here for me, okay?" He slipped a few coins beside his glass and rose from his seat. "Huh?" Ye Lingling looked up just in time to see him slip out the door. She hurried to her feet and peered through the window, but Cheng Xiao was nowhere in sight. Confused, she pressed her face to the glass, the cool condensation fogging her view. He had disappeared into the crowd as quickly as he'd arrived. For some reason, Cheng Xiao's eyelids fluttered, and a chill ran down her spine. Something was about to happen. After leaving the beverage shop, she slipped into a deserted alley. No sooner had she entered than 2 figures sprang from the shadows and melted into the darkness behind a crumbling wall. She pressed on, but the narrow passage stretched on endlessly. With every step, the alley seemed to swallow her whole. Finally, she stopped and raised her voice, calm but firm. "Since you're here, why not show yourself?" Her low words caused the very air to tremble. In an instant, the distant hum of traffic and the chatter of pedestrians vanished. The world fell deathly silent. From the alley's entrance, a faint, ethereal shape emerged. At first, it was nothing more than mist, but it solidified moment by moment into the figure of an old man. His moon-white soulmaster robe trailed the ground, and on the emerald ring clasping his shoulder was the name Kang Hui, embroidered in silver. "As I expected," he said, voice smooth as silk, "the strongest student of this generation. Your vigilance is admirable, but I'm afraid it's far too late." Cheng Xiao's heart skipped a beat at the old man's rasping voice. She pivoted slowly, her gaze steady and unflinching. "I don't recall having any quarrel with Kanghui Academy," she said evenly. "So tell me, what brings you here? Aren't you worried about drawing the Death Reversal's attention?" A hollow laugh echoed off the stone walls, chilling her blood. "No grudges, really," the old man replied, his voice a whisper from the underbri world. "But you still have to die. If anyone is to blame, it's you. Your strength, your talent. You've stood in Kanghui Academy's way, prevented us from claiming the championship fairly." He took a deliberate step forward, flames from nearby braziers dancing across his graying features. "Once you're eliminated, and once the other gifted soul masters from rival academies fall, who will stop us from taking the title?" Cheng Xiao lifted an eyebrow. "You sound very confident. You must be extremely powerful." The old man allowed himself a slow, satisfied smile, and for a moment it twisted his face into something inhuman. "Confident? Powerful? You'll find out soon enough." He glanced around the deserted courtyard, as if measuring its boundaries. Clever boy, or girl, he added, the corner of his mouth curling in amusement. Did you lure me here on purpose? Tension crackled in the air. Flames guttered. Both were poised on the brink of battle. Only one would walk away alive. Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a cold smile. Yes, I brought you here on purpose, he said, the darkness in his palm coalescing into a writhing shadow. If I don't find a secluded spot, how could I finish you off without drawing attention? Before Xinian could react, Cheng Xiao swept his hand, and dozens of shadow-forged blades shot forward like liquid night. They struck at Xinian with lethal precision, yet just as the foremost sword seemed poised to pierce him, the world around them blurred. When Cheng Xiao's vision snapped back into focus, they stood alone in a vast, empty wilderness. The shadow blades passed straight through Xinian's chest, and he didn't even flinch. A feral grin split Xinian's face. This is my illusion. You really thought you could kill me so easily? He laughed, voice laced with contempt. Admit it, you're powerful, but in a true fight, you'd still fall short. Cheng Xiao's eyes narrowed. Everything you see is of your own making? In your domain, not even the Soul King, or anyone with greater soul power, can touch you. Xinian's smile only grew wider. Exactly. Here I am untouchable, unless... He let the sentence hang, his gaze challenge flashing. Cheng Xiao lunged forward, darkness swirling like a storm around him. Unless what? He demanded, every ounce of menace crackling in the air. Xinian didn't answer. His features hardened, and the glow of his seventh soul ring flared with sudden intensity. In the next instant, the grove around them dissolved into shadow, and Cheng Xiao realized, with a jolt, that he was no longer under the moonlit trees, but back in the cramped room he'd visited earlier. Heavy curtains shrouded the small space in gloom. Cheng Xiao's desk, pressed against the window ledge, was buried under endless piles of textbooks, workbooks, and exam papers. No novels, no classics, just relentless drills and practice sheets. A stern, impatient voice cut through the silence. Cheng Xiao, how old are you now? A second voice snapped in reply, mocking, You're a senior in high school? Must you make me tutor you every night? A third chimed in, derisive and impatient. Look at Aunt Wang's son next door, straight A's. Stop goofing off with those lousy classmates. What future are you gumming up for yourself? And if you don't get into a top university, what good job will you ever land? No good job means no good wife. Do you want to muddle through life like this? Despite the torrent of scolding, Cheng Xiao's expression remained unreadable. He stood perfectly still, calm and silent, as the harsh words washed over him, and as the dim room seemed to close in, he wondered how many times he'd been dragged back into this same suffocating routine. Cheng Xiao had heard those words over and over since childhood. No matter how many straight A's he earned, his family's expectations were never met, as if his very existence were a mistake. Sitting at his desk, he felt like nothing more than a receptacle for their frustrations. Then the scene before him shifted. This vision moved him deeply. On a bitter winter night, a pale-faced boy, wrapped in a thin scarf, sat on the worn threshold of a rural farmhouse. From inside came a chorus of harsh curses, punctuated by the crack of something smashing. Moments later, a woman in a down jacket burst through the door, her cheeks flushed with anger. She glared at the boy bowed before her, yanked his arm, jabbed a finger at his chest, and hissed, How many times must I tell you to study? Why did you defy me for even a moment? I told you not to set foot in this wretched place, but if you insisted on coming, you'll end up just like your long-dead father, with no future. It was New Year's Eve. Cheng Xiao stood before his furious mother, his lips pressed into a thin line and his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. In the next instant, the scene shifted. Blinding sunlight flooded his vision, and through the glare, he saw a middle-aged man who might have been his twin stride toward him. No, toward the younger boy beside him. Xiao Xiao, Dad believes in you, the man said softly, his voice as warm as a midwinter hearth. Just because you're not top of the class today doesn't mean you never will be. Don't blame your mother. She only wants what's best for you. He bent down and tousled the boy's hair, offering a hopeful smile. After all, how could a father ever stop believing in his own son? Cheng Xiao's heart twisted. Tears pricked at his eyes as he squeezed his own hands so hard his nails bit into his palms. A tremor ran through his body, and his breath caught in his throat as a tide of suppressed emotion threatened to overwhelm him. Then, as though reality itself had shattered, the vision snapped away. Boom! Thunder rumbled across the sky as a torrential downpour began. On the slick streets, traffic rushed by, the rain washing away the dark stain of blood on the pavement. Car horns blared like agonized cries, echoing around Cheng Xiao and hammering at his senses. By the roadside knelt a small boy in a school uniform, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs as he clutched the hand of a man collapsed in a widening pool of blood. Around them, a crowd of umbrella holders stood frozen, watching the scene in solemn silence. Cheng Xiao's vision swam in sudden crimson glare. His hands curled into fists so tight his knuckles went white. Every heartbeat hammered in his chest, each breath came ragged and sharp. He stared at the motionless figure in the rain, at the man's pale face and the veins standing out on his forehead, until a terrible, animalistic roar tore from his throat. "Xi Nian, I fucked the mud horse!" Chapter 202, I'm sorry for making you worry. Xi Nian pressed his back against the broad trunk of an ancient tree, the seventh ring of his soul erupting in a cold, black radiance. A cruel, almost perverse smile curved his lips as he watched the scene before him. Just a dozen meters away, Cheng Xiao's body was enveloped in a writhing black mist that repelled any would-be rescuers. His eyes were squeezed shut, and his entire form trembled with the kind of agony words could never capture. Xi Nian could almost taste the boy's suffering. Killing geniuses never gets old, Xi Nian mused softly, his breath misting in the cool air. If only I could ascend to title Douluo, I'd be able to absorb every shred of his experiences into my martial soul. Now that would be perfect. He leaned forward, savoring the moment. But then, out of the oppressive silence, came a furious shout that froze him in place. "Xi Nian, fuck you!" Startled, Xi Nian spun around. Ahead of him stood the black-clad boy, Cheng Xiao, his eyes wide open now, blazing a fierce scarlet. Where once there had been only darkness, his eyes burned like embers, crackling with a sudden, terrifying violence. Xi Nian felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever was happening to Cheng Xiao, it had just taken a dangerous turn. Xi Nian's eyes widened in disbelief as he took a step back. "No, this can't be. You're only a Soul King and barely over level 50. Even at your peak, you can't break my 7th-tier soul skill, Nightmare." His pupils contracted to pinpoints as he stared at Cheng Xiao. Xi Nian hadn't personally witnessed Cheng Xiao's assault on Shrek Academy, but he knew better than to underestimate him. A predatory smile curved Cheng Xiao's lips. "Thank you for forcing me to reconsider my strategy." Underneath his clothes, iridescent scales rippled across his flesh, an unmistakable sign that his dragonization was taking effect. Xi Nian laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You insolent brat, you're merely a Soul King. I'm a level 72 Soul Saint. What gives you the right to challenge and kill me?" Cheng Xiao's eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "Let's find out." He slammed his foot into the tarmac, sending a shockwave of raw power rippling outward. The ground shattered in deep fissures, dust and debris spraying around them. And then, in an instant, Cheng Xiao was gone. No blur, no afterimage, just a void where he once stood. "How is this possible?" Xi Nian gasped, staring at the spot where Cheng Xiao had just vanished. A Soul King with that kind of speed, it defied all reason. Before he could register the thought, the air in front of him warped, and a fierce silhouette materialized. Xi Nian's eyes narrowed. His 6th soul ring flared to life, and he thrust out his palm, unleashing a crackling sphere of energy. From the shadows, a gauntleted hand wreathed in black mist shot forward and struck his blast head-on. The dark fog swallowed his attack in an instant. Xi Nian reflexively tried to leap back, only to sense something blocking his retreat behind him. He whirled around, but it was too late. A massive force tore through his chest with a single shuddering impact. With a thunderous crack, Xi Nian was hurled backward. Mid-air, he coughed up a stream of blood, each spurt arcing before splattering onto the ground. His throat burned. He dropped to one knee, weakly gagging as blood dripped from his lips. Then he noticed it. A black dagger embedded in his left side, its blade buried deep in his flesh. Xi Nian's vision blurred, and the world tilted around him. But one thought rang clear in his mind. Cheng Xiao's attack had come from nowhere, faster and deadlier than anything he'd ever faced. Xi Nian froze where he stood, horror spreading across his face as he watched Cheng Xiao stride toward him. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His soul power was draining away too quickly, and the lids of his eyes felt as though they were weighed down with lead. Through blurred vision, he saw after images of the boy advancing, each step precise, inevitable. Xiao paused just out of reach, a faint smile curving his lips. "Thank you for reminding me of those unpleasant memories," he murmured, voice low enough for only Xinian to hear. "I was going to recruit you as a soldier, but I've changed my mind." With that, he leaned in and whispered something too soft to hear. Then, in the next heartbeat, swung his thigh up in a brutal arc and caught Xinian squarely beneath the chin. The force of the kick sent Xinian hurtling through the air. Before he could land, Cheng Xiao turned on his heel and snapped his fingers. Shadows seemed to seep out of the darkness around them, converging on Xinian in midair like ravenous beasts. In an instant, crimson spatter rained from above, but not a drop touched Cheng Xiao. All of it fell to the ground, just as Xinian had seen in that terrible vision. When it was over, Cheng Xiao clapped his hands once. The shifting aura that had surrounded him vanished as abruptly as it had appeared, leaving him calm and untroubled. He inhaled deeply, steadying his breath. Then, from the lingering gloom, a shadow soldier emerged, holding aloft a soul bone crowned with multicolored light, the severed head bone of Xinian. The soldier knelt and presented it respectfully, sealing Xinian's fate. Cheng Xiao caught the soul bone as the shadow soldier proffered it and murmured, "Soul bone, I almost forgot." The moment he touched it, a curious thrill ran through his palm, as if the bone's hidden energy were wrenched into his flesh. He held the relic up to his crimson eyes, studying its jagged surface before slipping it into his soul guide. He let out a slow, rattling breath, and the scarlet glow in his eyes dimmed. Head tilted skyward, he watched the last sliver of sun vanish beyond the horizon. The great wizard's blessing burned away every trace of abnormal influence. Xinian's illusions had no purchase on him, and Cheng Xiao felt his thoughts snap into place. With a decisive clap of his hands, he activated his shadow exchange. In an instant, he stood amid the lively streets of Tiando City. He hadn't forgotten the promise he'd made back at the drink shop. Scanning the vendors, he bought 2 freshly steamed dumplings, and then, with the tasty parcels in hand, he hurried back to the shop. Pushing open the door, he found Ye Lingling still seated where he'd left her. Her face brightened when she saw him return, the anticipation clear in her eyes. Cheng Xiao smiled, taking a seat across from her and setting the warm dumplings on the table. "Sorry to keep you waiting," he said, offering one to her. "Enjoy." Cheng Xiao had been gone for more than an hour, yet Ye Lingling refused to leave her spot. She didn't want to risk being anywhere else when he came back. The drink in her hand was unremarkable, but without him, even that bland tea felt flat. "Lingling, I'm home." A gentle voice broke through her thoughts. Startled, she looked up. There he was, Cheng Xiao, smiling softly, 2 buckets of snacks in hand. Relief flooded her chest. "Cheng Xiao, you're back." All her usual reserve vanished. She ran forward, threw her arms around him, and pressed her face against his chest. "What took you so long? I was so worried." Cheng Xiao gently set the snacks on the table, slipped his arms around her waist, and held her close. "I'm sorry for making you wait," he murmured. Ye Lingling lifted his head, tears glinting in his eyes as he met Cheng Xiao's gaze. "Just promise you'll stay safe, and next time you go out, take me with you. I may not be much of a fighter, but I can help tend to him." His voice wavered, but determination shone through. "At the very least, I won't let you face everything alone." Chapter 203, Killing the Beast and Claiming the Bones. The sunset forest stretched as far as the eye could see, an unbroken ocean of vibrant green. A soft breeze stirred the treetops, setting every leaf alight with a whisper that drifted across the canopy. High above the tree line, 4 figures flew in formation, their sharp gazes sweeping the dense foliage below like hunting hawks. But the forest's vastness proved formidable. Despite their keen eyes, the rolling green waves concealed too much, and no matter how thoroughly they searched, potential prey remained elusive. They had spent an entire day scouring the woods for more than 10,000-year-old soul beasts, creatures whose bones held priceless power. For Tang San and the 3 members of the Golden Iron Triangle, the quest was both crucial and exhausting. Liu Erlong and Flanders, in particular, were growing increasingly impatient with this drawn-out hunt, yet neither dared voice more than a whisper of complaint. After all, Tang San was the cherished disciple of their respected master. Finally, Flanders signaled a halt, his chest rising and falling in heavy panting. "Let's take a break," he said, dropping to hover just above a thick branch. He glanced around at his companions. "How many soul beasts have we actually slain so far? We've combed this forest all day and haven't even glimpsed a single soul bone." Liu Erlong grunted in agreement. "At this rate, we'll be here until the next moon cycle. We need a better plan, or at least a sign of where to look." Tang San landed lightly beside them, the faintest glint of determination in his eyes. "We can't give up," he reminded them quietly. 10,000-year soul beasts are rare, yes, but when we find one, it'll be worth every ounce of effort. Despite their frustration, the others fell silent. In the hush that followed, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting to reveal its hidden secrets to those who refused to leave empty-handed. "If we keep this up, the soul beasts in Sunset Forest will be all but wiped out." After a full day of fierce skirmishes, even a soul sage above the 70th tier felt his spirit fraying. His body could still hold firm, but mentally he was on the brink of collapse. At his words, Liu Erlong finally paused her strikes and hurried over to Tang San and his master. "Shifu," she said softly, "we've been at this since dawn. Why don't we call it a day? Pushing ourselves any further won't help." The master shook his head, eyes alight with urgency. "You don't understand, Erlong. The preliminaries wrap up in just a few days, and then come the promotion matches. Tang San needs a 10,000-year soul bone. Without it, he stands no chance against Cheng Xiao of 7-Star Academy." Tang San stepped forward, voice steady. "Aunt Erlong, I know you're tired, and so are we all, but if we stop now, we might miss our chance. Give us a few more hours. We've been hunting soul beasts all day. We can't quit before nightfall." Liu Erlong looked from Tang San to the master, weighing their determination against her concern. Finally, she sighed. "All right, but rest when you must. I'll stand guard." With that settled, the two resumed their search, deeper into the twilight-shrouded forest, each heartbeat echoing the promise of what lay ahead. Flender forced a bitter smile. "Xiao-san, qualifying for the tournament is important, but slaughtering spirit beasts for their bones is like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. A spirit beast's hatred at death directly affects the chance of soul bones forming. If we slaughter every beast we see, the spirit hall will catch wind of it, and they'll hunt us down. My advice? Lay off for now, and strike when the time is right." Tang San's face darkened. The spirit hall again. If not for them, he and his family would never have been destroyed. Why should their rules bind him? He only wanted to grow stronger. Is that a crime? Yet amid his anger, he caught the key point in Flender's warning. To maximize a spirit beast's hatred, you must torment it, piling on suffering. Gee, a soul beast steeped in agony is far more likely to yield high-grade soul bones. Still, could he really torture them to death? No, a better approach was to capture and suppress a few beasts each day, inflict enough pain to stoke their hatred, then kill them swiftly. It would take longer, but the yield would be greater. Time, however, was short. Tang San's voice was low. "How much time do we have?" Flender grew solemn. "At best, half a year. Maybe a bit more if we push ourselves. After that, if we haven't produced results, we're out of the academy. It all depends on how much power we can muster." 6 months wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. He and Xiao Wu could spend that time honing their strength. He couldn't give up now. Xiao Wu needed him, and the undying iron will within him would one day make her spirit master abilities devastating. "All right," Tang San nodded. "Let's move. Once we find a way to subdue those beasts, we'll keep a handful each day, tame them, torment them, kill them, and repeat until the tournament." Flender fell silent, then lifted a hand. "Xiao-san, my soul can't advance any further, but I want one final challenge before I die. Let the spirit beasts vent their hatred on me, tear apart my soul core in their frenzy. That should force their bones to manifest." His eyes gleamed with something like awe. Tang San's heart clenched. Flender, once a spirit beast himself, was offering to be sacrificed so that others' bones would spawn sooner. Tang San shook his head. It was too inhumane. Better to catch the beasts off guard, strike their nests in a sudden ambush, break them with sheer terror, then finish them swiftly. It would still fill them with rage, but spare them unbearable, drawn-out agony. Flender considered this, then nodded. All right, but we must go deeper. Picture it. We storm their lair, ambush them in their own nests, drive them into desperate fear, then strike hard. The fury will be explosive, and will harvest top-grade soul bones. We only need a place crowded with spirit beasts, hungry, cornered, ready to fight back. That's perfect, Tang San said, determination flaring in his eyes. Let's go, now. Flender agreed, and Tang San paused once more, remembering something vital. He lowered his voice. What about Xiao Wu? Flender's face softened. We'll bring her. She's already an undead spirit beast. It won't be any worse for her. Even if the spirit hall comes looking, she can hide in the caves where we collect bones. Who'd find her there? Tang San nodded. Very well. With their plans set, they plunged deeper into spirit beast territory, toward nests teeming with beasts and the dangerous promise of soul bones that might secure their future. Evening had already settled over the sunset forest, and with it came a bone-chilling drop in temperature. Visibility shrank to less than a meter, the darkness almost absolute. Then, without warning, a strange breeze swept through the trees, carrying a swirling pink mist that washed over Tang San and his companions. The vapors smelled faintly sweet, almost addictive. No, there's poison in that mist. Teacher, watch out, Tang San cried. At his warning, Flanders and Liu Erlong sprang forward. Together they thrust their palms ahead, unleashing their soul power in an attempt to scatter the encroaching fog. After all, the only soul saints in their party were the two of them. Pillars of energy radiated outward, pushing insistently at the rose-tinted haze, but it wasn't enough. This poison cloud was far denser than they'd anticipated. Every handful of mist they dispersed reformed instantly, swallowing them once more. Before the fog could close in completely, Tang San drew something small and cylindrical from his belt. Teacher, Dean, Aunt Erlong, here, this is the antitoxin sausage I prepared with Oscar's extract. He thrust it toward them, its meaty aroma oddly reassuring against the sickly sweetness of the poison mist. Flanders and Liu Erlong seized the sausage without hesitating. As they tore it open and consumed the contents, the cloying haze around them began to waver. Slowly at first, then more decisively, the toxic fog lifted, dissipating into the cold night air like a bad dream. Within moments, the clearing forest glowed only with starlight, the threat banished by their timely antidote. Tang San swiftly withdrew 3 crimson sausages from his 24 bridges stash and tossed them toward the trio of golden triangle masters. They barely hesitated before snatching up Oscar's creations and devouring them in one greedy motion. Almost instantly, their tense expressions relaxed into looks of genuine enjoyment. One of the masters, catching Tang San's eye, asked with renewed interest, Xiao-san, can your vision penetrate this thick fog? Can you really discern the shapes of those spirit beasts? He tapped his temple, convinced that if they could identify their foes, they'd stand a fighting chance. Tang San gave a firm nod. Drawing a steadying breath, he activated his Zhuantian divine skill, sharpening his sight to a razor edge. The violet glow in his pupils flared, cutting through the swirling mist like twin lanterns. Under his intense focus, the fog seemed to part, revealing the hidden horde. All around them writhed countless spirit beasts, but 2 giants dominated the pack. The first was a colossal blood-red creature, every joint emanating a murderous aura. It skulked low to the ground, darting with terrifying speed, and its tail, a chain of 9 vertebrae, terminated in a blazing red hook. The second scorpion's carapace shimmered a pale rose, its form otherwise identical to the one before them. Tang San's heart hammered in his chest as he took it in, and the countless shadows writhing beyond it. He forced out a tremulous breath. Master, those 2 are the Earth King and the Pink Lady, he managed, voice low and urgent. Flender froze, eyes widening. Even 2 10,000-year-old soul beasts like that shouldn't be able to spread poisonous fog over such a vast area, he murmured, disbelief plain in his tone. Tang San's gaze flicked across the swirling miasma, where hundreds of other scorpion silhouettes danced at the edge of sight. It isn't just them, he said grimly. There must be at least 1,000 of their kind, some mere centuries old, others millennia. They've all been drawn here. 1,000? Flender echoed, brow furrowing. Could they have been lured by the scent of the souls we slew? Tang San's eyes narrowed to slits. We can't wait to find out. Master, we must strike, now, or this fog will overwhelm us. He braced himself, ready to unleash whatever it took to cut through the horde before them. If there really was a way to shatter the soul bones, it would be perfect for Fatty and Oscar. There's no other choice, one of them admitted. The trio known as the Golden Iron Triangle, Flender, Liu Erlong, and their master, nodded in unison. Flender and Liu Erlong exchanged a resolute look, each slipping an arm around the master's shoulders. Then, in a single fluid motion, they stepped forward at diagonal angles, locking themselves into a precise triangular formation. Sun-moon radiant golden turn, Flender's voice rang out like a war horn. In an instant, a blinding shower of golden light exploded from his body. Simultaneously, Liu Erlong and the master glowed with the same fierce brilliance. The three of them became the vertices of a luminous triangle, at the heart of which a spiraling, dragon-shaped sigil coalesced. The light intensified, pouring upward in a column of pure gold that cleaved the sky. A guttural roar, half human, half draconic, shook the air. And then, as if summoned by their combined power, the chubby form of Luo Sanpao burst into view, hovering above them. One by one, the members of the Golden Iron Triangle extended their arms. Their soul rings, each one humming with ethereal energy, lifted free from their fingers. In a streak of spectral light, the rings shot toward Luo Sanpao, racing to complete the ritual. End of chapter. Chapter 204, Evil Soul Beast, A Way to Die. As the three masters activated the Trinity Spirit Fusion technique, Luo Sanpao's plump form began to swell at an astonishing rate. In mere seconds, his rounded body stretched skyward and solidified into a majestic golden dragon. Forget the other soul beasts. Take out those two leaders. Master Hu's low command echoed across the battlefield. He wasn't sending them against Flanders, but aiming squarely at Liu Erlong. The golden dragon roared and lunged toward the ground with earth-shaking force. Before its claws could touch earth, pillars of molten flame shot from its jaws, instantly incinerating a clutch of century-old dragon soul beasts and even a towering millennium soul beast into smoldering ash. As the last wisps of poisonous mist cleared, Tang San spotted a dense wave of lesser soul beasts pressing in from all sides. The golden dragon reared up and bellowed, a thunderous roar that rolled across the sky like three simultaneous cannon blasts. In response, a thick veil of golden mist erupted from its tail, washing over the charging horde and stunning every creature caught in its wake. For a moment, the soul beast froze, blinking, disoriented, their savage advance halted. Master Hu's eyes gleamed as he surveyed the stunned ranks of enemies. The battle had tilted in their favor, for now. Once the dust settled, the master looked to Tang San standing at his side and urged, "Xiao San, go for the leaders of those two 5,000-year-old beasts. Their soul bones are in the eyes. Hit them directly." Tang San nodded without hesitation. Calling on Ghost Shadow Step, he darted forward toward the Earth King and the Pink Empress. With a casual flick of his wrist, he loosed an arrow from his Ju God crossbow, and at the same instant, his purple demon eyes locked onto the beast's true weak spots. The bolt shattered both creatures' ocular sockets. A pair of deafening roars rang out, and then silence, as both massive beasts collapsed, dead. 10 minutes later, Tang San and the Golden Iron Triangle stood amid a vast field of fallen spirit beasts, some only a few hundred years old, others over 1,000. Not one 10,000-year-old specimen lay among them, proving that even the famed Sunset Forest couldn't rival the Stardew Forest for true elder beasts. Nearly all of the defeated were scorpion spirit beasts, the sworn minions of the Earth King and the Pink Empress. At first, the three of them only intended to take down the lead spirit beast. After all, they'd already dispatched so many creatures on the way here, killing a few more wouldn't normally raise eyebrows. But in the Soulmaster world, there's an ironclad rule. You must never slaughter spirit beasts en masse, simply to harvest their bones. If you do, the mighty Wuhan Palace will descend on the entire spirit beast forest, leaving not a single creature alive, all so they can extract bone essence for themselves. No matter how powerful you are, you dare not defy that decree. Yet nobody expected Tang San to go so far. In his single-minded pursuit of bone treasures, he'd cut down every beast before him, 100-year-old spirit beasts included, leaving their carcasses heaped like discarded logs. Xiao-san, one of the masters said ruefully as Tang-san stooped over the corpse, carefully brushing away moss and bark to expose the gleaming bones beneath. Surely you're exaggerating, right? You didn't kill them all? Tang-san didn't look up. His fingers traced the contours of a massive femur, eyes coldly calm. Teacher, I only care about getting stronger. Other people's cultivation paths are none of my concern. It's their business, not mine. He lifted the bone, weighing it in his hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world, untroubled, unrepentant, utterly determined. Tang-san, if everyone starts hunting spirit beasts the way you do, in a few years even the Sunset Forest will be emptied of them. Every last one driven out or slaughtered. Not even the ruthless spirit palace has ever gone this far. Flanders shook his head. Unable to hold back any longer, Tang-san's hands never paused their intricate gestures. Dean, the only thing worth doing right now is getting stronger. As long as I can grow more powerful, every spirit beast I fell will have earned its death. Flanders threw up his hands in exasperation. Hey, you brat! He turned away, at a loss for words. Their master stepped forward, his eyes shadowed with sorrow. Xiao-san, you can't keep this up. The lower a spirit beast's cultivation level, the less likely it is to produce spirit bones. You're running down the supply you'll need to advance yourself further. Tang-san hesitated mid-gesture, his expression finally wavering. The master's words struck home. To grow stronger, Tang-san needed spirit bones, the rarer and more potent, the better. By indiscriminately slaughtering even the weakest, he was sabotaging his own future progress. Silence fell over the clearing as autumn leaves drifted down around them. At last, Tang-san let his hands fall to his sides. He met Flanders' anxious gaze and the master's mournful eyes. I understand, he said quietly. From now on, I'll be more selective. Relief flickered across Flanders' face, and their master placed a gentle hand on Tang-san's shoulder. Good, he said softly. True strength comes not from reckless slaughter, but from patience and wisdom. Tang-san nodded. The resolve in his eyes deepened. In the golden light of the setting sun, he vowed to himself he would neither squander the spirit beast's sacrifices nor abandon his own path to power. Instead, he would learn to choose wisely, so that when the time came, every bone he claimed would serve him well. Our mission in Sunset Forest is simple. Find a soul beast at least 1,000 years old. Tang-san paused mid-dig, lowering his voice. Teacher, if one of these ancient beasts were to detonate its soul bone, it would be the perfect opportunity for Mubai, Fatty, and the others to strengthen themselves. He wiped sweat from his brow and continued in a quieter tone. I'm only doing this so Shrek Academy will stand out at the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament. Without overwhelming power, Tang-san added earnestly, how can we win the championship? And without that power, how can I prove to the world that your martial arts theories are right? Those words, soft as they were, struck Master straight in the heart. Ever since his hopes of rising to become a great soul master had been dashed, he'd pinned all his ambition on demonstrating the superiority of his theoretical system. Only by vindicating his ideas, showing the world that true martial might lay in principle, not just raw talent, could he cleanse the shame that haunted him. Yet Master said nothing. Around them, the forest floor remained undisturbed. Despite hours of searching, not a single soul bone had been unearthed. Tang-san's shoulders slumped with disappointment, but he knew they couldn't give up. If conquering the elite tournament required 1,000-year-old soul beast's power, then they would keep pressing deeper into Sunset Forest, no matter what it took. They'd already faced so many spirit beasts without netting a single spirit bone. It felt like nothing but wasted effort. Then, the moment Tang-san rose to his feet, a shimmering green web appeared overhead, its strands glistening with thick, dripping mucus. In an instant, a vast shadow filled their vision. A 3-meter-wide body, mottled black and white, hovered before them. It was the man-faced demon spider, nicknamed the Evil Slayer. This creature grew more powerful by devouring smaller spirit beasts, and it had been irresistibly drawn to the scent of blood from the dozens of fallen beasts crowded in the clearing. Before anyone could react, it had burst through their defenses. How did it get in here? Flanders muttered, eyes narrowing as he exchanged a confused glance with Liu Erlong. Both were spirit masters at the 70th level, their senses keyed to the slightest disturbance, and yet this malignant spider had arrived unseen. Here on Earth had it come from? Everyone, watch out! This human-faced demon spider has more than 10,000 years of cultivation, the master shouted. As a soul beast predator that devours other spirit beasts, the demon spider is universally reviled. At the 10,000-year mark, it gains a unique concealment ability that hides both its form and its spiritual aura, exactly why Flanders and Liu Erlong failed to detect its approach. In an instant, the colossal spider hurtled from the sky, its 8 barbed legs outstretched toward Tang San, who had just finished dealing with the corpse. Flanders and Liu Erlong, having only moments before unleashed their martial soul fusion technique, stood ready in the front, while the master was the closest to Tang San. "Xiao San, look out!" Without hesitation, the master darted in front of Tang San and fired his martial soul weapon, the Luo San cannon. He then vaulted skyward, spun on a dime, and unleashed a second devastating blast straight at the human-faced demon spider. Fart like thunder, shatter sky and earth, Luo San Pao! The moment Luo San Pao's spirit ring flared, a vile stench exploded from his backside, yellowish fumes billowing straight at the human-faced demon spider. But the creature sailed through the cloud of miasma as if it didn't even notice, hurtling toward Tang San with unerring speed. In midair, its razor-sharp forelegs whipped out in a deadly arc and pierced straight through Luo San Pao's heart. Chapter 205, King Cheng Xiao. A chilling aura rushed toward him, and Tang San's eyes narrowed as he sensed death closing in. He reflexively reached for Ghost Shadow Trace, but when he saw the man-faced demon spider looming over his master, he forced himself to stay. If he fled, his teacher would be torn apart. With a grunt, Tang San unleashed his martial spirit, blue-silver grass. In an instant, dozens of thick cobalt vines burst from the earth, lashing around the spider's legs to pin it in place. Puff! The grass squeezed tight, but a jagged jet of blue flame roared in from the side, scorching the spider's armored back. The creature shrieked as the burning vines snapped, sending it hurtling backwards several meters. Then, in a flash of cerulean light, Liuer's draconic form materialized beside his master, silent, resolute, and ready to turn the tide of battle. Master staggered backward, coughing up blood from the backlash of his martial soul. Seeing him wounded, Liu Erlong's fury exploded. "Who dares lay a hand on my mother? 7th spirit skill, reveal the true form of the red dragon." The 7th soul ring blazed to life on her wrist, and with a thunderous roar that shook the air, her body ignited with roaring flames. In an instant, she morphed into a titanic fire dragon, her scales ablaze and eyes blazing embers. High above the battlefield, the demon-faced spider, foul and hissing, desperately tried to flee. But the red dragon, swift as lightning, lunged forward and swallowed the monstrous creature whole. The spider, born of 10,000 years' corruption, writhed in agony within the inferno of the dragon's maw. Its venomous mist sizzled against the searing flames, leaving it no refuge. Liu Erlong's martial spirit, a rare mutation of the blue electric Tyrannosaurus rex, had manifested its greatest power. Purifying fire, the sworn enemy of poison. Ensnared by the dragon's boundless heat, the demon-faced spider could only struggle feebly until its life was consumed in crimson blaze. When the last wisp of smoke cleared, Liu Erlong reverted to human form, her chest heaving with exertion. At her feet lay the smoldering remains of the spider. She glanced at Master, still on one knee, blood staining his robes. Determination flared in her eyes. They had won this battle, but she would never let anyone threaten her mother again. At that moment, Master's strength finally gave out. He coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed unconscious. "Master!" Tang San cried, leaping forward to catch the trembling man before he hit the ground. Instantly, he activated the Xuanqin Gong, channeling its internal force through his arms and into Master's battered body, desperate to halt the bleeding and stabilize his martial soul. Flanders arrived in the next heartbeat, carrying one of Oscar's specially prepared recovery sausages. But Master lay unresponsive, unable to swallow even a crumb. "Stay with me," Flanders murmured, seizing Master's hand. He poured soul power into the limp fingers, regulating the flow as carefully as a physician administering a potent medicine, fearful that any mistake might seal his teacher's fate. Minutes stretched by, an eternity of silent prayer, until at last Master's eyelids fluttered and his color returned. Flanders exhaled so loudly that Tang San turned in alarm. Gently, Flanders propped Master against a sturdy tree trunk and backed away. Relief washed over him in quiet waves. Tang San's eyes, however, had only grown colder. He pivoted toward their true adversary, the man-faced demon spider, still thrashing in the clearing. 8 spear-shaped legs bristled from its carapace, and in one of its hideous hands it clutched the Zhuji divine crossbow, the next bolt already knocked. Silence fell. Then Tang San drew a steady breath, summoned his own weapons, and prepared to end the nightmare. Tang San burst forward at the man-faced demon spider, eyes blazing with righteous fury. "You dare lay a hand on my teacher? You'll pay with your life." At his signal, Zhu Shen's twin hand crossbows cracked in unison. Guided by the piercing clarity of Tang San's purple demon eyes, every bolt struck true. A heart-wrenching scream rent the air as the spider writhed, its carapace blackened and smoking. Minutes later, it went still, its life snuffed out entirely. Victorious, Liu Erlong withdrew his martial soul's true form and hurried back to where Flanders knelt beside their fallen master. "Master Xiaogang, are you all right?" Liu Erlong's voice trembled, tears shining in his eyes as he reached for the injured man's hand. Flanders offered a gentle smile. "He'll be okay, Erlong. It's just a severe backlash from his martial soul. A few days of rest and recuperation, and he'll recover fully." The sun was dipping behind the treetops now, casting long shadows over the clearing. Flanders stood and brushed dust from his robes. "It's getting late. Let's find a safe place to make camp for the night. Master Xiaogong needs every moment of rest he can get." The others nodded, gathering their gear. Tomorrow they would set up proper recovery training for their teacher. Tonight, though, they would keep watch and let healing begin. While night had not yet fully closed in, Flanders glanced up at the dimming sky and said to Liu Erlong, "If we combine every last ounce of our soul power, we ought to be able to return to the academy before midnight." Liu Erlong nodded, lifted the master onto his shoulder, and readied himself for departure. Flanders cast one more look at Tang San, still painstakingly rummaging through the carcass of the man-faced demon spider, and shook his head with mild exasperation. He strode forward, seized Tang San's arm, then unfurled the silvery wings on his back and shot skyward, vanishing into the gathering dusk. Silver light poured from the heavens, the moonbeam a ribbon of water gently staining the world below. Tiny stars lay scattered like lost pearls across the deep velvet of night, each emitting a soft, pale glow. Inside a quiet chamber, Cheng Xiao sat cross-legged before a half-open window. His eyelids were sealed, his expression serene as he drew upon the ambient energies of heaven and earth, weaving them into his spirit with slow, deliberate precision. Soft footsteps drifted along the corridor outside. At once, Cheng Xiao's senses sharpened. He opened his eyes just as a purple halo slipped through the doorway. Under that gentle luminescence, his dark irises widened, absorbing every detail of the figure at the threshold. He rose to his feet and called out, "Ning Rong Rong?" Cheng Xiao frowned, his gaze sharpening. Why was she here? A soft creak announced the opening door, and Ning Rong Rong slipped into the room. She froze the moment she spotted him seated on the bed. "Cheng, Xiao, are you practicing? I hope I'm not disturbing you?" Relief flooded her features when he shook his head. "Not right now," he replied evenly. "So what brings you here?" Ning Rong Rong's cheeks tinted pink. She took a hesitant step forward. "I came to thank you. Ever since I took that fairy grass you gave me, my 7 treasures glazed tile tower shot up to the 9th level. It happened so fast I barely had time to process it. I thought I'd find you tonight, so I—" Cheng Xiao's expression grew colder. "Just get to the point." Swallowing, Ning Rong Rong clasped her hands. "My father, he wants to meet you." She forced herself to look up at Cheng Xiao's stony face before dropping her eyes again. "You see, our sect's martial spirit is bound by a restriction. No one can break past the 8-story pagoda without outside help." She paused, voice barely above a whisper. "He believes you can help us overcome that limit. After taking that spirit grass, my martial soul shattered its old limits and broke through to the 9th pagoda." Ning Rong Rong blinked in surprise. "Wow, after today's match, my father was asking if there's any more of that spirit grass. He's ready to pay any price to buy it." "Oh, I almost forgot." Cheng Xiao sat up straighter. From his soul guide came a soft glow as he produced a solid gold token and set it gently on Ning Rongrong's desk. My father asked me to give you this reward. Rongrong reached out, fingers hovering over the golden card. Then she paused, curiosity bright in her eyes as she looked up at Cheng Xiao. He was so young, barely a teen, yet his spirit power pulsed at Soul King level. Even Tang San from Shrek Academy, who boasted full spirit power, was only a soul master. Cheng Xiao, she asked softly, have you always cultivated at this level? He gave a slight, confident nod. Always. Rongrong swallowed, glancing at the token on her desk and then back to him. But only one spirit grass exists, right? Once it's used, there are no more. Cheng Xiao's calm smile hinted at something warmer. He waved away the token. Don't worry about that. Consider the spirit grass my gift to you. For a moment, the two sat in silence, one marveling at the rare breakthrough, the other touched by his generosity. In that simple act, a new bond was quietly forged between them. Cheng Xiao opened his eyes at Ning Rongrong's hesitance. If you really want to repay me with money, he said, his tone calm but firm, even if you handed over every last asset of the Seven Treasures glazed tile sect, I still wouldn't sell. Ning Rongrong blinked, caught off guard. Cheng Xiao closed his eyes again, slipping back into his meditative posture. Well, he added without opening them, if there's nothing more, I'll continue my practice. Please go on. Unable to think of anything else to say, Ning Rongrong bowed politely and left the chamber. She paused outside the door for a moment, then stole a glance through the lattice window. There, bathed in moonlight, Cheng Xiao remained perfectly still, as though he were part of the night itself. He trains harder than anyone I've ever met, she murmured to herself. And at all hours, too. She shook her head in wonder. No wonder he's always 2 steps ahead of us. With a small, wry smile, she turned and walked away, the soft whisper of her footsteps fading into the silence of the night. Chapter 206. The Hot-Tempered Huowu. The moment the first pale rays of dawn slipped over Tiando City, the hush of early morning was swept away by a familiar buzz of excitement. It was the 4th round of the competition, and after a quick breakfast, students from every academy streamed in groups toward the towering gates of the Great Soul Combat Arena. In less than 2 hours, the sprawling stands were packed with soul masters and spectators, their eager voices ricocheting off marble columns and banners overhead. Just as on the previous days, an orchestration of cheers, shouts, and spirited debates filled the air, creating an electric atmosphere that made every heart race. When the contingent from 7 Stars Academy finally appeared, Cheng Xiao suddenly felt dozens of eyes trained on him. His breath caught, then a deafening roar erupted across the arena. Cheng Xiao, the 1 through 7 champion. Stunned, Cheng Xiao glanced at his teammates. He hadn't fought in several rounds, yet the crowd still remembered him so vividly. A flush of surprise, and something like pride, washed over him as he prepared to face whatever came next. Yu Tianheng clapped Cheng Xiao on the shoulder with a grin. You haven't been around for a while, Cheng Xiao. You might not know it, but you're practically a star player here at 7-Star Academy. Everyone knows your name. Across the field, the students of Shrek Academy emerged from the Summoner's Channel looking far less celebrated. Their last few matches had been disappointing, and the energy around them was muted. Leading the group was Qin Ming. Since leaving Tiando Royal Academy, Qin Ming had bounced between teams alongside Flanders, Zhao Wuji, and others. Now he'd returned to campus as both coach and mentor for Shrek Academy. Qin Ming paused when he spotted Cheng Xiao among the 7-Star squad. After a moment's hesitation, he motioned his own players toward the rest area and strode confidently across the field. Teacher Qin Ming, long time no see, Cheng Xiao called out with a warm smile as he approached. There was no tension between them. During Cheng's stint with the Royal Fighting Team, Qin Ming had looked after him like a trusted mentor, and Cheng Xiao still held him in high regard. Qin Ming returned the smile, his eyes thoughtful. Indeed, Cheng Xiao, you've grown a lot since we last met. He glanced past Cheng at the rest of the 7-Star players. I'm looking forward to a good match today. Cheng Xiao nodded. Same here. It's been too long. May the best team win. With a respectful nod, Qin Ming turned back to rally his Shrek Academy players, who straightened their posture and prepared themselves for the battle ahead. On the other side, the 7-Star Academy squad huddled around Yu Tianheng, finalizing their strategy. The afternoon sun glinted off the arena's crystalline towers, signaling that the next round of the tournament was about to begin. Qin Ming raised an eyebrow in surprise when he spotted Cheng Xiao and the others walking toward him. "Long time no see," he greeted with a warm smile. "Cheng Xiao, I never imagined you'd all end up at 7 Stars Academy. A few days ago, your team really gave our students at Shrek Academy a run for their money." He paused, recalling the defeat. Of course, he knew why he'd lost that match, but in his eyes, a competition was simply that, a contest of skill and strategy, not a grudge to be held. Qin Ming had been at Shrek Academy long enough to understand his students' temperaments. He wasn't going to start blaming their rivals just because his own side had come up short. Dugu Yanran shifted her weight, offering a tentative smile. "Teacher Qin Ming, you're not still upset about our loss, are you?" "Yanran," he said gently, "I've been your mentor for years. Do you really think I'd hold a loss against you?" He chuckled and shook his head. "If you never lost, it wouldn't be much of a contest, would it? Everyone has off days." At that moment, Yu Tianheng stepped forward. "Sir, you look exhausted. Why don't you head back and rest? Oslo and Yufeng have been asking for you." Qin Ming gave a wry smile and waved him off. "Save it, Tianheng. I appreciate the concern, but as leader of Shrek Academy, I can't just sneak away now." He straightened his shoulders, meeting Cheng Xiao's gaze. "But enough about that. How have you all been settling in over here? Later on, if anything goes wrong in the match, it could cause you some real trouble," Qin Ming warned. "The competition's about to start," he added with a friendly nod. "Make sure you're ready. See you out there." With that, he smiled, waved to Cheng Xiao's team, and strolled off toward the warm-up area. Cheng Xiao exchanged a quick glance with her teammates before they followed him, only to run straight into a group from Blazing Academy. Their leader, Huo Wushuang, offered Cheng Xiao a polite smile. Cheng Xiao returned it with a faint lift of her chin. Before anyone could speak, Huo Wushuang's sister, Huo Wu, stepped forward. Her eyes burned with competitive fire as she faced Cheng Xiao. "Later in the contest, I hope you'll show us your best," Huo Wu said, her tone matter-of-fact. "Blazing Academy isn't on the same level as some trash school like Shrek Academy." Cheng Xiao met her gaze evenly and smiled. "Trust me," she replied. "Giving it your all is the only way to respect your opponent. I hope you'll put on a good show in the competition." "Humph, just wait and see. I'll beat you my own self." Huo Wu scoffed, then spun on her heel and stalked off. "Sis!" Huo Wushuang hurried after her, voice contrite. "I'm really sorry. She means well, even if she comes off harsh." Duguyan's lips curled with amusement. "Means well? After all that's happened? Look, since your sister issued the challenge, if 7 Stars just lets you win, we'd be the laughingstock." "Enough, Yanzi." Yu Tianheng intercepted Duguyan's arm with a gentle grip. "Let's just focus on the match. If you're the one getting hurt, don't complain I hit too hard." Cheng Xiao shot Huo Wushuang a quick, understanding look, then led the 7 Stars team toward the Soulmaster Lounge. Watching them go, a member of the Blazing Fire Academy bristled. "The Blazing Fire Academy, one of the 4 elements. Are we really supposed to be intimidated?" With confidence like that, another teammate snorted, and they followed their rivals into the lounge with their heads held high. "Enough!" Huo Wushuang's voice rang out, her eyes flashing with intensity. "Do you really think 7 Star Academy is so weak that Cheng Xiao could single-handedly wipe out Shrek Academy? He may be strong, but not that strong. Get real." A junior teammate frowned and muttered under her breath. "I don't understand what Captain Huo is doing. If we can't beat them, we should back off. Letting Cheng Xiao fight at full strength, aren't we just asking for trouble?" Huo Wushuang's gaze darkened as she recalled their last spar in the darkened arena. No one had seen exactly what happened, but when the lights came back on, only Cheng Xiao remained standing. Just him. The thought sent a shiver through her, and through every member of Blazing Fire Academy. "Captain," another student stammered, voice barely above a whisper, "what should we do now?" She drew a slow breath, shoulders slumping in defeat. "What can we do?" she said, her tone weary. "We hold our ground and stay calm." A collective sigh swept through the team. Somehow they had stumbled into a fight against an adversary even their captain feared. How formidable must Cheng Xiao be? Meanwhile, back in Seven Star Academy's lounge, Cheng Xiao stepped in and immediately went to examine the day's spirit combat matchups on the board. After reading the matchup, Blazing Academy versus Seven Star Academy, he let the bracket thud onto the table. No wonder Huowu had been so adamant that he fight with everything he had. His co-author had already studied the competition list in advance. "Whatever," he muttered, leaning back in his chair. "She's straightforward and hot-headed. If she gets knocked out, she'll end up back with me anyway. Once the tournament's over, I'll have my fun with her and the rest of them." End of chapter. Chapter 207, Pride is a Good Thing. The announcement crackled through the arena speakers. Game time had arrived. As the host's voice echoed over the field, both teams rose and took their starting positions. At his signal, Cheng Xiao strode confidently to the center, leading the Seven Stars Academy contingent onto the sunlit pitch. In the stands, students from rival schools murmured in surprise. "Sister, look," whispered Shuiyuer, nudging the girl next to her. "Cheng Xiao's out here again." Shui Binger leaned forward, eyes narrowed with anticipation. "I saw. This time, I really hope we get to see his soul skills in action." She recalled the last match when Shrek was defeated so swiftly that no one even had a chance to observe his abilities. The memory made her frown. A few seats over, Feng Xiaoqian tapped his chin thoughtfully. "This matchup ought to be entertaining," he said, voice tinged with concern. "I just hope Cheng Xiao shows some restraint. Would hate to see him hurt my sister, Huowu." His gaze flicked anxiously toward the Blazing Fire Academy's side, where Huowu was preparing herself. It was no secret among the crowd that Feng Xiaoqian had a fondness for her, and that today's battle would test not only pride, but friendship and loyalty as well. Shu Yuer leaned over and whispered with a grin, "Sis, look, Feng Xiaoqian's at it again, brown-nosing someone on stage." Shui Binger pressed a hand to her forehead, sighing. "Yuer, it's his own business. Stop poking fun and settle down." Yuer just stuck her tongue out at her sister, still giggling. Feng Xiaotian, accustomed to Yuer's teasing, could only shake his head and smile. He'd never bother losing his temper with these two. At that moment, the arena lights swung toward the Fighting Spirit stage. Players from Seven Star Academy and Blazing Fire Academy stood ready under the glare of the spotlights. The announcer's voice rumbled through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, up next, Seven Star Academy versus Blazing Fire Academy. Seven Star's captain, Cheng Xiao, returns to the stage today after his epic battle against the Shrek team. Let's see if he can top his last performance." A fresh wave of cheers swept the stands as the two captains stepped forward, their eyes locked in silent challenge, and the next thrilling match was underway. The moment the host's words faded, a thunderous roar swept through the arena, engulfing every corner of Duhun in deafening cheers. He beamed, pleased to see the crowd so fired up. After all, his job was to stoke their excitement and turn this match into an unforgettable spectacle. Raising his megaphone once more, he grinned and called out, "Before we begin, let me drop a hint. I'm sure everyone here is eager to see Seven Stars Academy's captain, Cheng Xiao, attempt his legendary 1 versus 7 feat again. Captain Cheng, will you give the audience what they've come to see?" Cheng Xiao glanced over his shoulder at his teammates and replied coolly, "If it's possible, I'd be glad to try." "Seriously?" Du Guyan curled her lip, sharing a look with the others. "Why bother? Let's forfeit now and be done with it." On her cue, Yu Tianheng and the rest of the team raised their hands in surrender. The host's eyes sparkled as he announced to the crowd, "It seems Cheng Xiao's teammates have absolute faith in him." The announcer's voice rang out across the arena. "In this round, our challenger will face all 7 members of Blazing Fire Academy, single-handedly." A ripple of excitement swept through the crowd. "I now declare the second match of Round 4 in the All-Continental High-Level Soul Master Elite Qualifiers, Seven Star Academy versus Blazing Fire Academy, officially underway." As the final words faded, the audience erupted in cheers. Nearly every chant supported Seven Star Academy and its lone warrior, Cheng Xiao. Even the few faint shouts for Blazing Fire Academy were unmistakably from Feng Xiaoqian, the notorious bootlicker of Shenfeng Academy. Standing at the edge of the arena, Huo Wushuang caught Cheng Xiao's eye and called out with a playful grin, "Brother Cheng Xiao, when we duel, promise you won't aim for my face, okay?" Cheng Xiao offered a reassuring smile. We'll talk about that later, if you manage to win, that is. Inside, he felt no real concern. Before stepping onto the field, he had meticulously studied his opponents' profiles. Their team, 3 veteran soul masters backed by 4 rising stars, boasted talent on par with Xiangja Academy. No doubt they were formidable opponents, but Cheng Xiao was more than ready. Cheng Xiao's eyes swept across his opponents, 3 of Chihuo Academy's soul masters. Huo Wushuang stood at soul power level 43. Beside him was the newest soul master, fresh at level 41, whose martial soul took the form of a fire leopard. And towering above them both was Huo Wu, the Academy's pride and its most powerful soul master at level 44. I told you, Huo Wu snapped, her tone icy as she met Cheng Xiao's steady gaze. I'll defeat you myself. Cheng Xiao offered a faint, dismissive smile. A little ambition is healthy, just don't let it blind you. Huo Wu's eyes blazed with impatience. Enough talk. Today I'll show you exactly how formidable Chihuo Academy is. With those words, 4 soul rings, 2 bright yellow, 2 deep purple, swept up from the ground beneath her, locking into place around her feet in a perfect circle. At the same instant, Huo Wushuang and the Fire Leopard Soul Master flared into action. They drew upon their martial souls and entered spirit possession. On Huo Wushuang, a sphere of crimson flame materialized out of thin air, roaring fiercely before it dissolved, revealing his body sheathed in dark red scales and a 3-inch horn jutting proudly from his forehead. The battlefield crackled with power as Chihuo Academy's elite prepared to unleash their might. The Unicorn Fire Tyrannosaurus martial soul was easily a match for the fiercest combatants. Infused with explosive flame power, it ranked among the highest tiers, though, unlike the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus, it could not shift into a dragon. That single shortcoming was enough to keep it 1 step below. Cheng Xiao's gaze flicked to Huo Wu. An ethereal, orange-red silhouette danced around her, her martial soul, Huo Ying, newly manifested. Huo Wu met his eyes, her pupils bright with unquenchable fighting spirit. In that instant, the 2 soul masters whose martial souls were both named Mars activated their auxiliary abilities. Sparks flew from their bodies, streaking into the 5 Chihuo Academy soul masters standing nearby. The moment the sparks touched them, all 5 surged with power. Their speed skyrocketed, their strikes grew fiercer. They're all fire attribute martial souls, Cheng Xiao observed, watching the myriad flames flicker across the Chihuo Academy side. He narrowed his eyes and spread his palms. Without warning, a roiling midnight black mist burst from him, racing outward like a living shadow to engulf the battlefield. Chapter 7. The Black Mist's Assault. In the blink of an eye, 7 shadowy figures burst from the swirling black mist, hurtling straight toward the 7 students of Chihuo Academy. Their speed was so blindingly fast that the students barely had a moment to brace themselves. "Everyone, watch out!" Huo Wushuang cried, whirling around to alert his teammates. But before he could fully pivot, a sudden gust of wind ripped through the clearing. A hand wreathed in ebony smoke shot forward and clamped around his head. Instinctively, Cheng Xiao activated his ruler ability. With barely any effort, he unleashed a powerful strike that sent Huo Wushuang flying across the courtyard. "Brother!" Huo Wu bellowed, his anger erupting in a burst of heat. He drew his arms to his chest and summoned a massive fireball, hurling it straight at Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao made no attempt to dodge. Calmly lifting his palm, he wove the black mist into a solid barrier. When the blazing orb slammed into the smoky shield, there wasn't so much as a crack, no ripple, no flare of sparks. The fireball collapsed inward and faded, swallowed by the inky darkness. Silence settled over the courtyard, broken only by the distant hiss of dissipating mist, and by the beating hearts of those who had just witnessed the clash of elemental power. Chapter 208. Cheng Xiao vs. Chihuo Academy. Cheng Xiao easily deflected Huo Wushuang's strike, and at once the faces of the Chihuo Academy fighters turned grave. Huo Wushuang staggered back, his momentum broken. 2 fire-craned spirit masters leapt forward to catch their captain's fall, while an auxiliary soul master hurried in to tend to his injuries. From the very start of the match, Chihuo Academy had been pushed onto the back foot, and now it was plain for everyone in the arena to see why Cheng Xiao had become legendary. With a single, flawless maneuver, he dismantled their best warrior. "If that's all you've got, you might as well concede now," Cheng Xiao called out, nonchalantly brushing aside the swirling black mist that had formed between them. His calm dismissal sent a hush over the once roaring crowd. In the VIP box, Emperor Shuiye turned to his right and addressed the renowned soul master beside him. Master Ning, did you catch what that strange black fog was? Ning Fengji adjusted his robes, peering thoughtfully down at the arena. Pardon my imperfect eyesight, Your Majesty, he replied slowly, but I believe Cheng Xiao's martial soul is the top-tier beast soul known as the Shadow Soldier. I suppose that black mist in his hand must be a unique ability of his martial soul. Someone muttered. In truth, the Tiando royal family and the leadership of the Qibao Luli sect knew Cheng Xiao by reputation, but only in the abstract. They had never been able to probe the nuances of his martial soul, and every person who had actually witnessed his true power was long dead. Damn it, I told you I wouldn't let you take me by surprise. Hu Shuang shook his head, frustration etched across his face. The auxiliary soul master's healing glow faded from his wounds as he rose to his feet again. He glanced at Cheng Xiao, eyes flickering with equal parts dread and resolve. We'll have to work together. He's too strong for any of us to face alone. No sooner had he spoken than the ground beneath the fighting spirit stage erupted in flames. A wall of crimson fire shot skyward, bathing half the arena in an intense, scorching glow. The 7 members of the Blazing Academy, Huo Wushuang included, simultaneously became enshrouded in crimson flames, their bodies glowing with ferocious radiance. The 2 auxiliary soul masters among them summoned their first soul rings, sending arcs of fiery sparks flying in every direction. Each spark streaked toward one of the remaining 5 soul masters, embedding itself in their aura. The result was instantaneous. The flames surrounding all 7 fighters flared brighter still, their combined heat and light rivaling the midday sun. From the stands, spectators held their breath. They had heard of the Blazing Academy's legendary control over fire, but never had they witnessed such a coordinated display. As the 7 warriors stood ready, each heart burning with determination, Cheng Xiao remained unnervingly calm. The clash of flames and will was about to begin. Huo Wushuang strode forward alongside a fellow offensive soul master, their combined presence radiating raw power. Suddenly, Huo Wushuang unleashed a thunderous roar, and searing flames coiled around him, forging a faint dragon silhouette in the air. "Watch out!" someone cried. At that warning, 2 swift strike soul masters leaped into the sky. From their backs erupted twin wings of blazing fire, their brilliant glow turning the night sky crimson as they swooped in to encircle Cheng Xiao. Surrounded by 4 adversaries, Cheng Xiao remained unnervingly calm. To him, only a battle fought at full tilt was worth the effort, and he was more than ready. Behind the attackers, 2 support soul masters from Chihuo Academy gleamed with energy as their 3rd soul rings ignited. The crackling sparks hovering overhead suddenly split, 2 became 4, and then multiplied again, streaming outward to cloak each of the 4 assailants in enhanced strength and lightning-fast speed. 3rd soul skill, Tyrannosaurus Fury, Huo Wushuang roared. In an instant, a serrated talon sprang from his palm. His muscles bulged, golden red light erupted across his scales, and his entire body was engulfed in roaring flames as he prepared to strike. You lose. From the heavens, a colossal phantom of a fire crane swooped down on Cheng Xiao, its purple-red flames igniting and whirling so rapidly that they fused into 2 spiraling flame cones no larger than a hand. At the same moment, the Fire Leopard Soulmaster launched 7 azure flame bombs in a deadly volley. Between the 4 Soulmasters of the Crimson Flame Academy, 2 ambushing from above, 2 from either side, every possible escape route was sealed off. Cheng Xiao inclined his head, a soft sigh escaping his lips. Clever plan, but utterly useless. He closed his eyes, centering his mind, and in an instant activated Shadow Exchange. The air where he'd stood rippled and then fell eerily still. Not a trace of Cheng Xiao remained. The 4 attackers froze, stunned into silence. Huo Wushuang's eyes went wide with disbelief. How could he escape? We had every angle covered. A faint afterglow lingered where Cheng Xiao once stood, the dying heat of the flames the only hint of his presence. What none of them realized was that the 7 phantom shadows Cheng Xiao had cast earlier were far more than mere illusions. They were the very foundation of his shadow exchange technique. granting him the perfect moment to vanish and slip through their deadly trap. Cheng Xiao's trump card was simple but deadly. If his shadow soldiers were slain, the power of shadows could revive them instantly. With a single fluid motion, the so-called shadow exchange, he vanished from sight and reappeared directly behind Huo Wu. Still scanning the arena for her opponent, Huo Wu didn't notice him until her strike sliced into empty air. At the same moment, her 4 Chiwo Academy allies unleashed their attacks, only to discover their blows smashing into insubstantial shadow forms. A thick, inky fog billowed up, snuffing out their vision. The 2 supporting Soul Masters braced themselves to warn Huo Wu, but before they could speak, Cheng Xiao summoned his signature move, the Hand of the Ruler. A single, crushing blow sent them sprawling, unconscious, without a sound. Huo Wu's heart lurched at the sight of her fallen comrades. Cold sweat beaded on her brow. Then a low, mocking voice drifted to her ears. Still refusing to admit defeat? Keep this up, and you won't last to fight the next match. Moments ago, Cheng Xiao had been on the ropes. Now he stood, unseen, unheard, at Huo Wu's back, his speed and shadows turning the tables in an instant. How he managed it, no one could say. All the onlookers could see was a swirling black shadow, surely a soul bone skill? Most in the crowd assumed as much. Only Ning Fengji, Saras, and the other VIPs felt a pang of unease. Want me to admit defeat? Over my dead body! Huo Wu's voice rang out, teeth clenched and eyes blazing. At her command, the 3rd soul ring on her wrist burst into life. 3rd soul skill. Resist fire ring. Instantly, a blazing orange-yellow halo surged outward. Though this skill carried no direct attack power, its sheer force swept away everything in its path. The ring expanded to an astonishing 60 meters in diameter, 10 meters larger than the entire fighting arena. Cheng Xiao was caught in the blast. He was flung backward and skidded to a halt right at the arena's edge, scrambling to his feet and dusting off his robes. Meanwhile, the 4 disciples who had launched the earlier assault formed a tight defensive circle around Huo Wu, their eyes burning with determination as they faced Cheng Xiao. For a heartbeat, the arena fell silent, then anticipation crackled in the air. The true test of wills had only just begun. Brother, I'm going to unleash that move now. Huo Wu's voice rang clear. At her command, the 4 soul rings on her arm flared in perfect unison, and the fiery silhouette looming behind her flared from a burning red to pure, searing white. Incredible. It's the fusion ring. A mosh, tear in the audience burst out. The spectators sat up, breath caught in their throats. If this talent really worked, the Elder continued, they could integrate the fusion ring into the Shrek 7-in-1 martial soul fusion technique, and Shrek Academy's chances of winning the tournament would skyrocket. Of course, the fusion ring wasn't a skill anyone could learn. It was a rare innate gift, manifesting only in the most exceptional soul masters. With it, one could simultaneously unleash the power of all their soul rings in a single, devastating pulse before channeling that concentrated force into a soul skill. The result was catastrophic destructive power, an explosive strike no ordinary martial soul could withstand. As Huo Wu stood poised for that momentary burst of supreme energy, the crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Whatever happened next would leave its mark on every soul in the arena. Chapter 209, Nowhere to Run. A searing flame pulsed in Huo Wu's palm, igniting her fiery red hair into a living blaze. This wasn't a mere waft of heat, it was pure, concentrated explosive power. Huo Wu Yaoyang, she called, each syllable amplifying the brilliance gathering in her hand. In an instant, the light condensed into a pearl-sized orb of white fire that shot toward Cheng Xiao, who was only a stone's throw away. The effort cost Huo Wu dearly. As the orb detached, her face drained of color, the strain on her soul power painfully obvious. Everyone, run! Huo Wuxuang shouted. He vaulted off the fighting soul stage in one fluid motion, desperate to avoid collateral damage. But Huo Wuxuang's own attack paled in comparison. The moment the orb left Huo Wu's palm, it expanded with terrifying speed. In seconds, it swelled into a miniature sun, its scorching radiance blotting out even the real sun overhead. Cheng Xiao froze, disoriented by the orb's blinding glow, and by the inexplicable pull drawing him toward it, as if it had its own gravity. Where could he flee when the very air burned behind him and the blazing orb loomed ahead? No corner of the arena would be safe from that sunlit inferno. If this were any ordinary opponent, dodging that attack would have been impossible. The white sphere wasn't just Huowu's standard soul spell, it was the culmination of her ring fusion technique, its destructive power exceeding even the combined total of all her soul energy. It hurtled toward him like a massive bomb. Cheng Xiao watched it approach with a bored calm. He didn't bother to dodge. With the ruler's palm at his command, any incoming attack could be altered mid-flight. Why waste effort evading? No matter how great the damage, once he activated his skill, he could reshape its course out of thin air. Let her fire her ultimate move. He'd simply send it bouncing back on her. He raised a single palm and released an invisible shockwave. The moment the white sphere neared impact, its path curved gently away, drifting into empty space at Cheng Xiao's side. Then, boom, a furious explosion blossomed, incandescent flames roaring outward and shrouding his figure in blinding light. Huowu watched in horror as Cheng Xiao froze in place and was swallowed by the roaring inferno. She was utterly spent. Her fusion ring had unleashed both her third and fourth soul techniques in a single, devastating sweep, channeling power on par with a Soul King's full-strength assault. Now every ounce of her spirit energy had been drained, and she stood trembling, unable to lift a finger. Around the soul combat stage, the rest of the Blazing Academy fighters had already jumped down to safety. Only 2 support soul masters remained, both knocked unconscious by the backlash of Huowu's fusion ring. My fusion ring's power matches a Soul King's at peak strength, Huowu reminded herself, voice hoarse. I should have this in the bag. But before she could convince herself, the flames parted, and through the smoldering haze stepped a lone figure, unscathed and calm. Huowu, the stranger called, voice low and confident, your flame's peak temperature can't harm me. It's over. Why not admit defeat? At those words, Huowu's heart lurched. Her eyes widened in shock. And from the sidelines, Huowu Shuang, watching from below the stage, stared back with utter disbelief. Though everyone had long suspected Cheng Xiao's prowess, no one ever imagined he'd be completely impervious to flames. How was Huowu supposed to stand a chance? What they didn't know was that Cheng Xiao had quietly tapped into the power of the shadow warrior Nash, hiding beneath the white inferno. Nash, having absorbed the very soul of the Fire Dragon King, was now utterly fireproof, and Cheng Xiao wielded that raw draconic energy to full effect. While his shadow abilities alone could repel heat, there was simply no comparison to the Fire Dragon King's might. Huowu's signature inferno, which had once marked her as unstoppable, now licked harmlessly at his form. Who could recover from such an unforce? In reversal? We concede, Huowu spat out, each syllable a grudging admission of defeat. Her ruby-red eyes blazed with indignation, but she was thoroughly outmatched. Pride wounded though it was, she had no choice but to bow out. Deep down, she felt no shame. Cheng Xiao had been formidable from the first moment, and losing to him was simply the outcome of this battle. Cheng Xiao watched Huowu's simmering glare with mild surprise. She had no natural fire immunity, yet somehow her blazing technique had been completely neutralized. Losing under such circumstances felt unfair, and she made no effort to hide her frustration. Sighing, Cheng Xiao turned to the motionless referee and called out, "May we have the official result, please?" The referee blinked, then stepped forward. By this match's rules, 7-Star Academy wins. A roar of approval swept through the arena. The crowd finally understood just how formidable Cheng Xiao's defenses truly were. Cheers rang in his ears as he formed a fist in triumph. Huowu, still clutching at her cloak, crossed her arms and leveled a steely gaze at him. With deliberate calm, Cheng Xiao inclined his head. I fought by the agreed rules and used every ounce of my strength. Miss Huowu, I hope you won't hold it against me. For a moment, Huowu's expression softened. Then a small, wry smile curved her lips. Hold a grudge? Really? She said, her tone lightening. Losing is losing. No hard feelings. The tension broke, and though the defeat stung, Huowu's graceful acceptance earned a round of respectful applause from the stands. The contest was over, and both competitors left the arena with their dignity intact. Huowu didn't bother to look back. I may be competitive, he said, voice calm, but I'm not narrow-minded. Next time, I'll get my victory sooner. And thank you for keeping our agreement and showing me just how far behind I am. With that, he stepped off the soul-fighting stage and walked away without another word. Cheng Xiao watched his retreating back, thoughts whirling. If Huo Wu had really gone all out, he reflected, the duel would have been over in an instant. He too descended the platform, determination burning behind his eyes. Far to the north, a howling wind swept across the frozen plain, carrying snowflakes that battered everything in sight. The sky and earth blurred into a single, endless white void. Tuoba Shi pulled his cloak tighter against the biting cold and felt a stray flake melt on the top of his head. He shivered and turned to address the trembling ranks of the Holy Dragon Legion, but before he could speak, he craned his neck toward the heavens. There, cutting through the snow and wind, hovered a swirling portal. Like a whirlpool spun from ice and moonlight, its edges pulsed with pale blue energy. "What is that?" Tuoba Shi whispered. The entire legion stood silent, eyes locked on the strange vortex above them. Tuoba Shi stared at the swirling portal, his brow creasing with unease. He could detect no energy fluctuations within it, yet in this frozen stretch of the north, the very sight of such a phenomenon set his nerves on edge. Then, in the next heartbeat, a chill terror struck him. Something inside the vortex was moving, coming alive. "Fall back now!" he roared, voice cracking like thunder. Without waiting for the Holy Dragon Legion's response, he turned and ran, every step driving him away from the maw of the portal. He even headed toward the direction from which his martial spirit avatar had come, as though any other path might lead straight to his doom. The legionaries blinked in surprise. Their leader, a level 90 titled Douluo, had never shown fear before. If Tuoba Shi was panicked, the threat had to be unimaginable. As the wind screamed past his ears, his soul power surged uncontrollably, igniting the 9 rings at his feet. He sensed the portal's malevolent aura growing stronger, and then, not 10 strides ahead, a second, even larger gateway ripped open the air. "What on earth is this?" Tuoba Shi gasped, dread knotting his chest. In an instant, each of his 9 soul rings erupted into brilliant light, forming a luminous cocoon around him. The brilliance shimmered and spun, a desperate shield against whatever horror was poised to emerge from the darkness. "Where can I run to?" The voice that answered crackled like an unrelenting blizzard from the far north. In an instant, a host of pale, white-haired figures swept into view, hovering on the icy air with bowstrings drawn. Tuoba Shi stood paralyzed, his heart pounding as terror took hold. Before he could gather his wits, more shapes emerged through the swirling frost. Slender ice elves with crystal blue eyes and hulking snow bears whose sheer bulk dwarfed everything around them. The clearing filled with their vast silent forms, and Tuoba Shi felt the ground drop out from beneath him. He was utterly stunned, trapped in a nightmare more chilling than any winter storm. Chapter 210, The Snowman King, Lord of Frost. Who or what are you? Snow swirled in relentless gusts as Tuoba Shi stood at the edge of the clearing, his 9 soul rings glowing with ethereal light. Before him, a portal of shimmering ice crackled to life. From it poured an army of ice elves, their pale skin and crystalline armor blurring into the drifts. With a roar, Tuoba Shi summoned the white-armored earth dragon's spirit. A pulse of oppressive force radiated outward, warping the air like a shockwave. The ice elves paid him no heed. At their head strode a lithe elf with hair as white as frost, an arrow notched on his bow. A playful, almost contemptuous smile played across his lips as he surveyed Tuoba Shi, as though the war god himself were merely an amusing curiosity. Tuoba Shi's jaw tightened. He began to sound the rally horn for his Holy Dragon Legion, but the notes died in his throat. Suddenly, heavy snow fell from a storm-torn sky, each flake charged with a bitter chill that bit through his armor and settled in his bones. A knot of dread formed in his chest. He wheeled around and froze. Where his legionnaires had stood, there now towered ice sculptures of grim precision, each soldier encased in translucent rime. Their faces were locked in expressions of silent terror, mouths agape in wordless screams. The wind howled through the frozen forms, carrying a terrible stillness that chilled Tuoba Shi more than any blizzard. He swallowed hard. This was no ordinary ice elf assault. A far greater, more cruel power had revealed itself on the battlefield, and it had just begun to show its true strength. Tuoba Shi barely had time to lift his foot when icy magic coiled around his leg and froze him solid, turned him into a lifeless statue. He could only watch in horror as his holy dragon legion shattered under the avalanche of opposing power. Fear snapped into fury. Summoning every ounce of his strength, he unleashed a level 90 soul power wave. A brilliant beam of golden light shot upward, then exploded outward across the boundless snowfield. The crushing pressure drove the weaker ice elves to their knees. Only their commander remained standing, a cruel, playful glint in his frost-touched eyes. A voice, hollow and ancient, drifted across the battlefield. A human at the rank of Legion Commander, it mused. Truly a rare specimen. The temperature plunged again, and Tuobashi felt the chill pierce his bones. "Stop your games," he roared. The eighth ring of his soul flared to life, and a second golden beam scorched from his mouth toward the unseen speaker. "Delightful, so very delightful," the voice purred, brimming with excitement. Then Tuobashi saw him, framed high above by a vast, swirling portal in the sky. A solitary figure appeared. His eyes were ice-cold, his face lined with age, and his hair tumbled in wild, careless locks. In that instant, Tuobashi knew he faced an opponent unlike any before. The old man with snow-white hair simply stared at him. Then, raising a single palm, he summoned an instant barrier of ice that halted Tuobashi's golden beam, his eighth soul skill, freezing it solid on contact. "This can't be real. Who are you?" Tuobashi snarled, more wounded in pride than hurt by the beam's rebound. He studied the figure before him, a being neither fully human nor a soul beast, as a biting cold seeped into his bones, dampening his fury. "My name is King of Cold, the stranger replied, his voice crackling like frozen wind. Before Tuobashi could react, the Cold King appeared at his side. In his hand gleamed a long dagger carved from living ice. "Wretched creature," he breathed, frost dancing in his pale eyes, "your body shall be mine." With that, a lance of ice-blue light shot from the Cold King's gaze and pierced straight into Tuobashi's eyes. "Ah!" Tuobashi's scream split the air. As he cried out, the Cold King's form shivered and dissolved into drifting frost. Witnessing this display, every ice elf present dropped to their knees, bowing low in reverent awe. After a moment, King Kuhan's takeover was, as complete, Tuobashi's body lay empty, fully possessed by the Cold King. As Tuoba's memories flooded through him, Douluo Continent, the Spirit Hall, Soul Masters, Soul Beasts, he stood and surveyed the ice elves arrayed before him. Laughing, his voice crackling like frozen thunder, he proclaimed, "The Cold Emperor has returned. Shadow King, remember this. I will shatter you with my own hand." The lead ice elf bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" King Kuhan's eyes gleamed. "When I first came here, this world's rules dampened my power. Until the other elemental kings arrive and elevate the world's strength, the Dragon Emperor cannot break through its barrier. We must fortify this realm first." "Understood, Your Majesty," the ice elf replied, rising. Satisfied, King Kuhan glanced skyward at the vanished portal. Clad in Tuobashi's form, he would journey to Wuhun Palace. There, he'd unravel the secrets of this land and prepare for his vengeance. The future of Douluo Continent and the Shadow King's doom begins now. After he has fully mastered this world's secrets, he intends to reach out to the other kings and force them to elevate its overall level. Only once that is done can the Dragon Emperor, the King of Destruction and undisputed mightiest sovereign, cross over into this realm. Wuhun City, Worship Hall. This immense circular structure is the centerpiece of the Pope's palace and the tangible emblem of Wuhun Palace's supreme power. Stepping through its double doors, visitors find themselves in a cavernous hall crowned by a 30-meter-high dome. Except in the rarest of circumstances, no one below soul power level 95 is permitted to remain here. This is where the true might of Wuhun Palace congregates, so formidable that even the Pope must observe its restrictions. The resident Douluo, each a titled master in his own right, could shatter a city if they ever stood united. At this moment, only 4 figures occupy the sacred space. All wear the dark robes of the palace elite, and their backs are turned to the entrance. The one who clearly commands the group appears to be in his 30s or early 40s. Tall and lean rather than bulky, he possesses a striking, aristocratic beauty. Long strands of golden hair tumble down his back, catching the light as he turns his head to speak to his companions. A soft, steady breath emanated from the man at the head of the chamber, filling the hall with an almost tangible serenity. His presence alone made everyone around him feel at ease. Standing a few paces behind him were 3 more Spirit Hall worshippers. 2 of them could have been twins, both tall and handsome, clad in gleaming golden armor beneath flowing purple robes, each wearing a matching purple headscarf. One carried a sky-blue panlong staff, the other gripped an identical weapon painted in deep crimson. Their features were nearly mirror images, except that the first boasted a single scar slashing across his right eye. Beside them stood a 4th man, his frame broad and rugged, his golden armor embossed with crocodile motifs that lent him an air of unshakable might. These 4 were the Spirit Hall's highest-ranking worshippers: the great worshipper Douluo, whose calm breath set the tone for the gathering, the 2nd worshipper, Golden Crocodile Douluo, and the 6th and 7th worshippers, Qianjun Douluo and Zhangmo Douluo. Golden Crocodile Douluo inclined his head politely toward Douluo, a puzzled frown creasing his brow. "Brother," he asked, "why have you summoned us?" Qianjun Douluo and Zhangmo Douluo exchanged glances of mild curiosity, waiting for their superior to explain the sudden assembly. Normally, the disciples of the Hall of Worship devoted their days to training within its soaring walls, rarely venturing beyond its gates. This morning, however, a rare tension rippled through the courtyard. Douluo, the great worshipper, glided in with measured steps, his robes whispering against the marble floor. Nearby, Qianjun Douluo and Zhangmo Douluo paused their sparring as he approached. Douluo's voice was calm but carried an unmistakable urgency. "Not long ago I detected several unusually potent auras. I believe they belong to creatures from another world. I need the 2 of you to go and investigate." He paused, letting them absorb his words. "Your strength is considerable. Should you be unable to confront them directly, you can still withdraw safely." Zhangmo Douluo's eyes narrowed. "Great worshipper, do you think these beings might surpass us, titled Douluo, in power?" Douluo shook his head. "I cannot say for certain how formidable they are. Only this much: if they are allowed to set foot on the Douluo Continent, calamity will surely follow." A hush fell over the courtyard as he continued, his voice firm. "As descendants of the angel god, our Qian family has long defended this land, driving out evil and preserving peace for countless generations. That sacred duty now passes to you." Qianjun Douluo exchanged a glance with Zhangmo before turning back to their elder brother. His brow was drawn with concern. "Brother, what do you ask of us?" Douluo's dark eyes met theirs. "It's time for you to leave the Hall of Worship and face this threat. Go swiftly, and may the angel god guide your path." With that, he stepped aside, leaving Qianjun and Zhangmo to steel themselves for the journey that lay ahead, an expedition that would carry them beyond the safety of the hall and into the unknown perils looming over the Douluo Continent. The Continental High-Level Soul Master Elite competition is now underway. As soon as it concludes, every member of my Wuhun Hall will be dispatched. They've trained long and hard. It's finally time for them to fulfill their purpose. Qianjun Douluo and Zhangmo Douluo exchanged a brief glance and inclined their heads in agreement. Golden Crocodile Douluo cleared his throat. "Brother, what about Bibi Dong? How should we handle her?" Douluo's lips curved into a confident smile. "She'll do as she pleases. No need for us to interfere. Right now, our top priority is those otherworldly creatures that threaten the land. We can settle our internal matters once that job is done." With that, Douluo turned to face the towering angel statue at the hall's center. Golden light danced in his eyes as he contemplated the challenges ahead. End of chapter. Tiando City, Prince's Mansion. A cool breeze rippled through the courtyard as Qian Renshui stood on the balcony, her long blonde hair brushing against her waist. Hands clasped behind her back, she gazed across the sprawling city below. Though her figure was delicate, an unmistakable strength radiated from her every movement. "Miss Renshui, a letter has arrived from Wuhan City," came a voice from the shadows. Without turning, she replied softly, "From whom?" A ripple of space heralded the arrival of Snakespear Douluo Yulong. The middle-aged warrior stepped forward, bowing deeply as he produced a sealed scroll. "A dispatch from the Grand Elder, my lady." Qian Renshui's pale brows drew together. "Grandpa's writing?" she murmured, reaching out to take the letter. Carefully, she broke the seal and read its contents. Moments passed in silence. At last, she folded the parchment, her expression grave. "Yulong, it seems our next move must begin at once." Yulong's eyes flicked up, concern in his gaze. "My lady, what do you intend?" She drew in a steady breath, voice low and unwavering. "After 10 years of careful plotting, the time has come to accelerate our plan to claim the Tiando Empire." Quiet determination settled over them both as the evening sky darkened. The die was cast, and soon the prince's true ambitions would be revealed. "There's too much risk in dragging this out," Chan Renshui said, shaking her head. She laid a sealed letter before Snakespear Douluo. "We have no time to waste. Read this now." Snakespear Douluo frowned but took the letter and broke the seal. His eyes darted over the lines, growing wider by the second. At last he whispered, "This, how can this be true?" "Nothing is impossible," Chan Renshui replied coolly. She lifted her chin. "Grandpa's deductions have never been wrong. For the next while, I want hourly reports on any movement within the spirit hall." He nodded gravely. "I fear that madwoman will strike at the worst possible moment." "Precisely," Chan Renshui agreed. "That's why I've decided we launch our plan the instant the Continental High-Level Soulmaster competition concludes. If we wait any longer, we'll lose our only chance." "And what of Cheng Xiao?" Snakespear Douluo asked. "Stay clear of him for now," she said. "With Dugubo by his side, he should manage fine." "Understood, young master." Snakespear Douluo bowed deeply, then vaulted to his feet and slipped away into the shadows of the prince's mansion. Chan Renshui stood motionless on the windswept plateau, her slender, jade-like fingers tightening around the letter in her hand. She watched the lone figure disappear toward Spirit City, her pale eyes shadowed by unspoken thoughts. Only silence answered her, broken by the distant cries of the city beyond. That same afternoon in Tiando City, the Grand Soul fighting arena reverberated with thunderous applause. Spectators rose to their feet, chanting Cheng Xiao's name as word of his latest victory spread like wildfire. Yet Cheng Xiao himself remained unmoved. He offered the crowd only a brief, casual wave before turning on his heel. Moments later, back in the plush lounge of Seven Stars Academy, Cheng Xiao found Ye Lingling waiting for him. A soft glow from the lanterns above illuminated her smiling face. He grinned in return, strode over, and slid into the seat beside her. "You really stole the show out there," Ye Lingling murmured, her voice barely rising above the hum of conversation around them. "All those students couldn't take their eyes off you." Cheng Xiao gave a modest shrug. "I fight to win, and giving my all is the best way to honor my opponent." Leaning forward, she studied him with amused curiosity. "Then tell me honestly, did you hold anything back?" He scratched the back of his head, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. "Well, not exactly." He offered her a sly smile. "But there's still more I could have done." Yi Lingling chuckled, her eyes dancing with encouragement. "Good. The next time, I want to see everything you've got." Cheng Xiao's grin widened. Don't worry. I'll be ready." He picked up a porcelain cup of tea from the small table before them, and as he sipped, the two friends settled into comfortable silence, the roar of the arena fading into the evening beyond the lounge's doors. Yi Lingling let out a soft chuckle. "So you really did give it your all, huh?" Her words rang with irony. After their epic clash with Shrek Academy, 7 Stars had already captured everyone's attention, but Cheng Xiao's stunning victory today had propelled both him and his school to the very summit of the preliminaries. Whispers spread through the crowd. The champion was almost certainly going to come from 7 Stars Academy. Down below, Huowu trudged off the arena steps, her shoulders slumped in dejection. Just then a calm, low voice drifted to her ear. "Huowu, don't beat yourself up over this. You didn't lose unfairly. And remember," the voice continued, "Cheng Xiao isn't someone you topple easily, but don't let today's loss rob you of your fighting spirit." Everyone from Chihuo Academy turned in unison toward the source of the voice. Striding toward them in teal uniforms trimmed with silver velvet embroidery was a contingent they recognized immediately. These were the students of Shenfeng Academy, another 5-element school, matching Chihuo's colors but distinguished by that shimmering silver thread. Leading the group was their captain, Feng Xiaotian, his expression friendly yet earnest as he offered Huowu a nod of encouragement. Feng Xiaotian's eyes lingered on Huowu, admiration shining in his gaze. She narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean by saying I didn't lose fairly, Xiaotian? Explain yourself." Feng Xiaotian's face flushed. "Nothing. Sister Huowu, really, I was only speaking offhand. But Huowu, still smarting from her defeat, snapped, don't dance around it. Just say what you meant. Realizing he'd overstepped, Feng Xiaoqian hastily backpedaled. Look, I know Cheng Xiao shrugged off your fire attacks, but he might not be immune to wind, my specialty. In most Soul Master duels, it's the elemental matchups that decide the victor, so it wasn't entirely your fault if you lost. His words seemed to lift the weight off everyone at Blazing Academy. No one liked watching a friend get mocked right after a match. Huowu inhaled deeply, composing herself. Cheng Xiao really is a monster, she said quietly, her voice regaining its usual steel. With his strength right now, no one, not us, not even the Spirit Hall's elite, can stand against him. In the next round, he'll crush every opponent before him. Feng Xiaoqian felt a chill run down his spine at her calm certainty. This wasn't the fiery, unyielding Huowu he'd always known. Something in her had shifted, and it both impressed and unsettled him. Huowu's eyes narrowed as she studied Feng Xiaoqian's face. Feng Xiaoqian, she said coolly, I know you like me, but you should know women respect strength. If you can defeat Cheng Xiao, I'll give you my answer. The challenge hung in the air. Feng Xiaoqian froze, heart pounding. Beside him, his younger brother Huo Wushuang let out a resigned sigh. There was no reasoning with his sister once she set her mind on something. After a moment's silence, Feng Xiaoqian squared his shoulders. Very well, Sister Huowu, he promised, voice steady. When 7-Star Academy faces Divine Wind Academy, I'll make Cheng Xiao regret ever stepping into the arena. Huowu allowed herself a faint, approving smile. Good. Defeat Cheng Xiao, and everything between us is settled. Without another word, she swept past them toward the resting pavilion. Huo Wushuang hurried to keep up, catching her sleeve. Sister, even if you're not fond of Feng Xiaotian, isn't this a bit extreme? Cheng Xiao's strength is unparalleled. No single warrior, let alone an entire academy, stands a chance against him. Huowu shrugged him off gently. What's that got to do with me? I never asked Feng Xiaoqian to agree. I just threw down the gauntlet. Let him decide whether he's up to the task. With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving the brothers to mull over the impossible challenge she'd just issued. Ever since childhood, Huo Shuang had been raised among the glittering elite, an upbringing that readily justified her pride. But it wasn't pedigree alone that earned her the top spot in soul power at Blazing Academy. She'd pushed herself harder than anyone else, day in and day out, honing her strength until there was no rival left to best her. Now, as she watched her brother Huowu hurry away, his teasing voice floated back over his shoulder. Hey, sis, what are you going to do if you never get married? Huo Shuang let out a wry, helpless sigh. Unmarried? It was the last thing on her mind, and yet, beneath that pride, a small, unspoken worry flickered. Chapter 212. Too Tough to Crack. In the stands overlooking the arena, the mood at Shrek Academy was a mix of relief and lingering frustration. After suffering defeats in the first 2 rounds, the team had staged an impressive comeback in the subsequent matches. Even better, Dean Flanders, ever the smooth talker, had secured an advertising sponsor to ease the Academy's strained budget. The catch? The sponsor's slogan was virtually indecipherable, plastered in a garish font that made everyone's eyes hurt. Still, with the Academy's finances on life support, Flanders had promised to accept any deal, no matter how ugly the logo. The result, every student now wore the hideous new jerseys, secretly itching to rip them off or tear them to shreds, but powerless as long as Flanders held the purse strings. Dai Mubai tugged at his collar in exasperation as he adjusted the uniform's blinding colors. Dean, he called over, voice dripping with sarcasm, who are we up against today? Flanders blinked, caught off guard. He'd been so consumed with brokering deals and chasing sponsors that he hadn't paid much attention to the tournament schedule. Beats me, he admitted, shrugging. You're the athletes. Why don't you ask coach? Before Dai could retort, Ma Hongjun spoke up, glaring at Flanders over his shoulder. Dean, you can't just chase money and forget about us. You're still our dean after all. Flanders rubbed the bridge of his nose and managed a sheepish half-smile. Right. I'll get the schedule for you in a minute. Just hang in there, okay? His eyes flicked to the students in their new kits, each one suppressing the urge to protest, and he sighed. We'll survive this, and hey, once we start winning again, Maybe I can find us a better sponsor." Murmurs of grudging agreement rippled through the group. Despite the awful uniforms and the ever-present worry about funding, one thing remained unbroken: their determination to fight on, no matter how tough the competition or the colors proved to be. It had taken more than 2 weeks of continuous care and intricate repairs, but his mechanical legs were finally reattached, except for the third limb, which was lost forever. He now walked with a pronounced limp, and his voice sounded unnaturally sharp. Flanders heaved an exasperated sigh and glared at Ma Hongjun, bitterness seeping into his words. "I spent every last coin of my savings to get that kid back on his feet. Now that he's walking again, are you satisfied?" "Flanders, stop picking on Hongjun," Juju King snapped, her turquoise eyes flashing. "He's been through enough already." Just then, the master entered the workshop. After exchanging a few curt words with Flanders, he turned to Tang San. "Tang San, come with me. There's something important I need to discuss." Xiaowu rose from her seat beside Juju King, folding her arms. "Master, must you really talk about it behind closed doors?" The master's expression darkened. "Tang San is my disciple. I have every right to speak with him alone." Unfazed, Xiaowu shot Tang San a knowing look. "All right, if you insist on secrecy. But you always say that the 7 monsters of Shrek Academy are like one body. Now that Ning Rongrong's resigned, there are only 6 of us left. Just thought you should remember that. Rather than hashing this out alone, we should say it face to face." Xiaowu stood and spoke up, her tone measured. Beside her, Ju King rose slowly. "Master, Xiaowu's right. We've already dropped 2 matches. If we keep this up, we might not even make the promotion round." Master's brow furrowed. You two." He opened his mouth to protest, but Flanders cut in with a friendly chuckle. "Xiaowu, Ju Qing," he said, waving one hand as he stepped between them and the master. "I know you're eager to win every game, but we need to stick to the plan. Remember, the qualifying round is points-based. Even if we lose one more match, it won't ruin us, as long as we rack up enough points overall." He nodded as if that settled it, then turned his gaze toward Tang San. "Xia, oh gang, didn't you and Tang San have something to discuss alone? Why don't you two head off now?" At Flanders' prompting, the master finally caught on. With a dismissive snort, he stood, pulling Tang San up alongside him. Tang San gave Xiaowu a quick, apologetic look before following the master out of the lounge. As the door swung shut behind them, Xiaowu's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Xiaowu hadn't heard a single threat from Tang Hao during this entire period, which meant she was missing something important. The biggest clue, she realized, was the massive explosion at 7-Star Academy one night in Tiando City a few days ago. In her mind, there was no doubt who was responsible. Tang San had been defeated that very morning, and by evening the academy had erupted in flames. Anyone who knew Tang San's history would immediately suspect a connection. It seems Tang Hao is in deep trouble, Xiaowu thought. Maybe this is my chance to slip away from Shrek Academy before the finals. But the moment the idea took hold, she hesitated. What would happen to Juju King if she ran off without warning? Over the weeks they'd spent together, the two had grown extremely close, and Juju King had even confided her real reason for enrolling at Shrek Academy. Abandoning her now felt impossible. Juju King carried a secret identity that made her a target. If Xiaowu simply disappeared, her friend would be hunted without rest. And knowing Juju Qing's fierce spirit, she'd never submit quietly, she'd fight back with everything she had. Torn between her own safety and loyalty to her sworn sister, Xiaowu stood at a crossroads with no easy answers. Xiaowu's heart sank as she reconsidered their plan. It simply wouldn't work. She couldn't run off on her own, not when Juju Qing was still trapped in that dire situation. Tang Hao was too busy to help now, and by the time they reached Wuhan City, any chance of escape would be infinitely harder to seize. Tang San followed his master into the study and closed the door behind him. Though the older man's face remained composed, a subtle crease appeared between his brows. He gestured quietly for Tang San to take a seat. "Master, and Xiaowu?" Tang San began, then paused, uncertainty clouding his features. The master raised a hand to forestall further questions. "It's settled, Xiao San. Your father insists that Xiaowu is your responsibility. I don't know his reason, but we must honor his wishes." Tang San pressed his palms together, his mind racing. My responsibility. Father. He bowed his head, fists tightening at his sides. Xiao-san, the master said after a moment's silence, today's match is against Shenfeng Academy. I advise you not to take part. Tang-san looked up, bewildered. Why not, teacher? Master sighed, running a hand through his hair. Feng Xiaotian, captain of Divine Wind Academy, possesses a rare mutation martial soul called the Swift Wind Two-Headed Wolf. It combines the brute strength of a heavy-hitting system with the lightning reflexes of an agile assault soul. And like you, he was born with full innate soul power. He leaned forward. All his academy's students are wind attribute soul masters who can actually fly, and they specialize in wearing opponents down with sheer speed. They're notoriously difficult to handle. Since the tournament began, Divine Wind has only lost once, against Blazing Fire Academy. Even that defeat was engineered by Feng Xiaotian himself. He let the water slip. I don't know his reasons, but make no mistake, his strength is overwhelming. The master shook his head. In our current state, Shrek Academy has little chance of victory against him. Tang-san absorbed this in silence, his brow furrowed as he fell into deep thought. Tang-san hesitated, then looked up at his master, eyes burning with concern. Master, if that's the case, do we even qualify to enter the promotion match? Elder Shi placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Xiao-san, set that worry aside. Shrek will absolutely earn its place in the ocean match. Tang-san's heart pounded. But you won't have to fight in the opening rounds, Elder Shi interrupted gently. I'll handle it. Trust me. Tang-san opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. He'd trained endlessly, determined to prove himself in every battle. Now his master's calm confidence both comforted and confused him. Elder Shi studied his student's face with kind, knowing eyes. Don't let other people's opinions sway you. Your spirit is unbreakable. That refusal to admit defeat is one of your greatest strengths. But remember this, unyielding resolve can turn brittle and snap under pressure. Your father learned that lesson the hard way. As his son, don't tread down the same narrow path. Tang-san swallowed, absorbing the warning. His resolve burned still, tempered now by a wiser caution. In that moment, he understood that strength came not only from an iron will, but from knowing when to rely on others and when to trust in himself. Chapter 213, Qualifying Round. The moment the master returned to Shrek Academy's lounge, every pair of eyes turned to him. He paused at the entrance, gauging their anxious expressions, then spoke in a steady, resonant tone. In today's preliminary matches, you each have only two real choices, he began. First, you can withdraw from this round entirely, preserve your strength for later. Second, you can scramble to form a makeshift team now and enter the competition, but be warned, your chances of winning would barely top 1%. A hush fell across the room. Dai Mubai was the first to speak. Master, Tang-san's condition is still too unstable. He can't fight today. With him sidelined, we'll be lucky to break into the top 5 in points. Isn't that enough? Our true goal is the finals, not the preliminaries. The master nodded grimly. He had sensed all along that today might not go the way they'd hoped. The unexpected loss of Ning Rongrong, Shrek's cherished princess of the 7-treasure glazed tile sect, still rankled. At the last moment, she had withdrawn from Shrek to represent another academy, leaving them short-handed when they most needed her. He laid out the dilemma plainly. We have 2 paths ahead. 1, we fight through every match and hope for a miracle. 2, we step back, avoid disastrous matchups, and secure a top 5 finish in the qualifiers. That's the minimal ticket to the finals. Yellow eyes flickered around the lounge as each student weighed the options. They knew the preliminaries would pit them against powerhouses from the other academies, teams that, even at full strength, presented formidable threats. Without Tang-san's blue-silver domain and without Rongrong's hidden treasures, Shrek Academy would struggle to field more than a stopgap lineup. Juju King stood, her violet hair catching the light. Master, if we preserve our energy, we'll miss the opportunity to test ourselves, but if we go all in, we risk not making it at all. The master inclined his head. Exactly, you must choose. Once the decision is made, there's no turning back. An uneasy murmur spread through the group as the gravity of the choice settled in. The preliminaries were only the first hurdle on their road to the championship. And today, how they played this hand could determine if they'd ever reach the finals at all. With that, the master stepped aside, his cloak billowing. The students exchanged determined glances, preparing themselves for the most critical decision of their academy careers. The clock was ticking. Chapter 213 of their journey was about to unfold. Since the tournament began, Shrek Academy has suffered defeat only at the hands of 7 Stars Academy and Kanghui Academy. Their master understands exactly why they fell to Kanghui, yet he still names 7 Stars and Wuhundian as their only true rivals. Every other school, in his eyes, is no more than a school of minnows and shrimp. After all, if Shrek were ever beaten by any lesser academy, wouldn't that utterly disprove his strategy? A sudden roar shattered the tense silence. Flanders strode forward, eyes blazing. "Xiao Gang," he thundered, voice echoing through the training hall. "If you simply give up mid-match, doesn't that validate my argument?" Xiao Gang's grip on his staff tightened. Around them, the other students watched in stunned silence. The challenge hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. No one dared look away. Liu Erlong's eyes flashed with impatience as he squared off against Director Flanders. "Boss Fu, I swear you're obsessed with money these days," he accused. "You need to think long-term. What if the little monsters are our next opponents? If we get seriously hurt now, it'll be a disaster when facing them later." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't let your own greed cost our team the finals." Flanders bristled at the rebuke, but forced a wry smile. "All right, since Sister Erlong has spoken, how could I, as dean, only look out for myself?" He turned to Dai Mubai, who'd been watching in silence. "Mubai, since Tang San won, to be taking the field, the choice is yours." With that, Flanders nodded curtly and exited the lounge, his shoulders hunched in frustration. Ma Hongjin rose at once, hurrying after him, fearful the dean might change his mind. Inside the room, the remaining members exchanged concerned glances. Minutes later, Shrek Academy issued their decision. They would forfeit the upcoming match. From here on out, their plan was simple. Preserve their strength. When they faced stronger foes, they'd withdraw. Against weaker ones, they'd press forward. The room fell quiet. Every face reflected the weight of what lay ahead, and the uneasy hope that, with measured caution, Shrek Academy might still emerge victorious. 1 week later, the qualifiers were in full swing, and with 27 rounds nearly complete, the end was in sight. At the top of the standings sat 7-Star College, closely followed by Divine Wind College. In third and fourth place were Tianshui College and Blazing Fire College, respectively, with Shrek College clinging to fifth. Thunder College and Elephant Academy trailed just behind, each still hoping for a late surge. Despite having forfeited one match, Shrek College boasted an impressive 21-3 record. In this division, only the top 5 teams would advance to the promotion round, and with just 3 matches remaining, it was already clear which schools had clinched the first 4 spots: 7-Star, Divine Wind, Tianshui, and Blazing Fire. Shrek needed only to hold steady to secure the final berth. Shrek's toughest remaining opponent would be Thunder College. Thunder's final schedule featured a daunting match against first-place 7-Star, a showdown with fifth-place Shrek, and a contest against a yet-to-be-announced school. They could count on at least one victory from those 3 games, and if they managed to upset Shrek, they'd notch 2 wins in their last stretch, putting real pressure on the standings. To put it simply, Shrek Academy currently sits on 21 points. If we secure victory in our next 2 matches, we'll finish with 23. Thunder Academy, by contrast, is on 20 points, so even if Shrek wins its next game, it would only reach 22 and still wouldn't be assured a promotion spot. But nothing's written in stone. If 7-Star Academy loses to Thunder, Thunder will pick up 2 points and climb to 22, tying us. That would throw the race for the final promotion berth wide open, since nobody knows whether Thunder or 7-Star will win that head-to-head. In the Shrek Academy locker room, Coach Xiaogang spread the official schedule for the last 3 rounds across the table, his face unusually grave. "The fixtures are out," he announced. "Right now, our position looks solid, but if 7-Star pulls off an upset, we could find ourselves battling Thunder Academy for that final qualifying spot." Flanders frowned. "Coach, are you saying our fate might rest in other teams' hands?" Flanders spread the qualification standings out on the table, his finger tracing the numbers. I've just checked the leaderboard. 7-Star Academy and 3 of the 4 elemental colleges have already clinched their spots. Tang San frowned. With 3 matches left, even if we sweep Thunder Academy, we only pick up 2 points. They're on 22, we're on 23. It's mathematically impossible for us to leapfrog them. Not so fast, Flanders said, leaning in. What if 7-Star Academy doesn't want us to advance directly? Suppose they deliberately throw their match to Thunder Academy. That loss would put them level with us on points. The master, Tang San's mentor, strode over, stroking his chin thoughtfully. A tie on points means a playoff, and in a one-off match anything can happen. Tang San's eyes brightened with realization. So our fate hinges on 7-Star Academy losing on purpose? Flanders nodded. Exactly. If they hand Thunder Academy the win, we'd end up tied. Then it all comes down to a decider. The master fixed Tang San with a steady gaze. Xiao-san, if our theory holds, the final extra match is on you. Beat Under Academy in that playoff, and Shrek Academy earns a spot in the promotion game. Fail, and we're stuck in yet another tiebreaker, a situation heavily favoring Thunder Academy. Tang San straightened his shoulders, determination flaring in his eyes. Understood. I'll be ready. The master offered a rare, approving nod. Good. Our academy is counting on you. The final day of the tournament had arrived, and all eyes were on the decisive match, Thunder Academy versus 7-Star Academy. If 7-Star Academy chose to forfeit, we'd find ourselves at a serious disadvantage, our fate hanging in the balance. Don't worry, teacher, Tang San said, his voice brimming with confidence. I'll handle the next match myself. From the very first round until now, he had faced off against nearly every top contender, everyone except Cheng Xiao, and he was certain he could best any of them. What's more, the 8 spider spears grafted to his back had fully regrown, and after absorbing the soul power of the 10,000-year-old demon spider, his own spirit energy had surged to a new level. He was far stronger than he had been at the start of the competition. In their previous encounter, Shrek Academy had drawn against the 4 elemental academies. Rather than risk exposing their full strength, they'd all chosen to forfeit, playing it safe to conceal their true abilities. That strategy had paid off, securing their qualification for today's promotion match at the very last moment. Master, Dai Mubai interjected, concern flickering in his eyes. If we really lose to Thunder Academy, what's our plan then? Is there any way to avoid a tiebreaker? All of Shrek Academy fell silent, waiting for their instructor's reply, and for Tang San to prove once again just how formidable he had become. Because of the Wei family's internal power struggle, failing to advance in the preliminaries would cost him his claim to the throne and quite possibly his life. His brother would strip him of his soul power and condemn him to a lifetime of imprisonment without mercy. Dai Mubai values his life too much to risk that fate. If he didn't, he wouldn't have been so intimidated by Davis, and he certainly wouldn't have left Juju King to travel to Shrek Academy on her own. End of chapter. Master looked over at Dai Mubai and spoke in a low, urgent tone. Mubai, listen carefully. Even if we lose to Thunder Academy, the organizers might, if we're extremely fortunate, allow both our academies to advance by declaring a tie for 5th place. But that's never happened before. You must give everything you've got in this match. The members of Shrek Academy exchanged uneasy glances. Dai Mubai's jaw tightened until his knuckles turned white around his gauntleted fists. After a moment's silence, he lifted his gaze to Tang San. Xiao-san, he said quietly but firmly, we can't afford to lose this time. Tang San noted the tension in Mubai's expression and realized his teammates' worry ran deeper than mere competitiveness. Beside him, Juju Qing, usually so impassive, looked uncharacteristically downcast, her emerald eyes shadowed with concern. They all understood the stakes. A victory over Thunder Academy would guarantee Shrek's place in the next round. A defeat, however, would force them into a sudden death tiebreaker against Thunder, and the odds in a round-robin format would be much slimmer. The entire fate of their academy hinged on this one battle. If Ningrongrong's 7 Treasures glazed tower had been in play, Shrek Academy wouldn't be this underpowered, hidden prowess or not, and they certainly wouldn't have ended up in such a tight spot. 3 days before the preliminaries concluded, Shrek's long-awaited showdown with Thunder Academy arrived on schedule. In the Academy's quiet lounge, warm afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, lighting Cheng Xiao's face as he sat cross-legged in meditation. He focused on selfless cultivation, drawing each breath out long and slow. With every inhalation, the ambient spirit energy of heaven and earth seeped into him. Strengthened by his Shadow Dew technique, it then radiated outward to empower his shadow soldiers. Under Cheng Xiao's guidance, their strength now rivaled that of a Soul King, Night Tier in other terms. Even Titan and Yin felt his suppressive aura, kept to night level, while Nash, immune to Cheng Xiao's shadows, stood firm as a Legion commander. "Hey, Cheng Xiao," a teammate said quietly, stepping into the soft light. "Today, we take on Thunder Academy. Want to go check it out?" Yu Tianheng's familiar voice drifted in as Cheng Xiao sat in silent meditation with his eyes closed. Cheng Xiao opened his eyes and saw Yu Tianheng stopped at the edge of the training hall, barred by the silent ranks of Cheng's shadow soldiers. The corner of Yu's mouth curved into a wry smile. With a casual wave, Cheng Xiao sent the shadow soldiers dissolving into black mist, and Yu Tianheng made his way in. "You and your shadow soldiers are far too courteous," Yu Tianheng teased, collapsing onto the sofa. "They wouldn't even let me pass." Cheng Xiao chuckled and took a seat opposite him. "I couldn't very well keep out an old friend." He leaned back, studying Yu Tianheng curiously. "So you said the match between Shrek Academy and Thunder Academy is about to start. What's got you so interested in it?" Yu Tianheng scratched his head. "I'm paying close attention because Yu Tianxin, the captain of the Thunder Academy team, is also a descendant of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan. In our family's hierarchy, he actually outranks me," Yu Tianheng explained as he fell into step beside Cheng Xiao. "My cousin is one of the leading candidates to inherit the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan. He's always pushed himself harder in cultivation, aiming to beat me and win the family's favor. His dream? To defeat me in the all-continental Soul Master Elite competition and prove he's the true heir." Cheng Xiao's lips curved into a sly smile. "Then let's go watch him try. Sounds entertaining." Yu Tianheng shook his head with a rueful laugh. "You really are something," he said. "But fine, let's go see what all the fuss is about." Together, they wove through the bustling corridors and took their seats high in the stands. The stadium lights dimmed, and the announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. "The third-to-last preliminary round is about to begin. Direct your attention now to the Spirit Arena in the center. Up next, Thunder Academy versus Shrek Academy. Tomorrow, the already qualified 7-Star Academy will face off against Kamikaze Academy, undoubtedly the highlight match of this tournament. Don't miss it." The crowd roared in anticipation as the spotlight swept the arena floor, setting the stage for another epic clash. The referee's announcement set the arena buzzing. Everyone knew that the upcoming match between 7-Star Academy and Kamikaze Academy was the real draw, far more exciting on paper than Shrek Academy's showdown with Thunder Academy. Whispers rippled through the stands. 7-Star had become the tournament's biggest dark horse, and although Kamikaze had only lost once, spectators quietly agreed it was a deliberate throw. If those two powerhouses ever clashed, it would be fireworks. "Unbelievable," Dai Mubai growled, striding toward the ring. "This match is supposed to be Shrek versus Thunder, yet our referee can't stop talking about 7-Star and Kamikaze. Are we just stagehands here, playing the supporting role for someone else's main event?" Tang San followed close behind, feeling the tension coil in Mubai's muscles. He knew his friend was seconds from losing his temper. "Mubai, don't let your frustration flare up," he urged quietly. "We'll have our moment in the spotlight soon enough." Despite the murmurs, the referees maintained order and called both teams to prepare. Shrek Academy's fighters adjusted their gear and stretched methodically, refusing to let the hype distract them. Thunder Academy's members looked equally focused, trading calm nods as they ran through their warm-ups. The undercurrent of rivalry crackled with anticipation. When the bell finally rang, the crowd hushed. All talk of 7-Star and Kamikaze vanished in an instant as Shrek Academy and Thunder Academy launched into a fierce opening exchange. Blows rang out, powers flared, and within moments it was clear. This was no mere warm-up bout. The real battle had begun, one that would prove which academy truly deserved the roaring cheers of the arena. Tang San's hand came down hard on Dai Mubai's shoulder. When the preliminaries start, we'll crush Thunder Academy and teach them what real strength is. We're going to wipe that smirk right off their faces. Dai Mubai's eyes flashed. He clenched his fists, took in a slow, steadying breath, and forced his temper down. Losing this match would mean no chance at the promotion rounds, and after all the effort he'd poured in, that was unthinkable. This was his life on the line. Moments later, both teams surged onto the arena platform. The crowd's murmur swelled into a roar of anticipation. The first match of the 25th preliminaries, Thunder Academy versus Shrek Academy, begin, the referee's voice boomed. Dai Mubai squared his shoulders, lifted his arms in front of his chest, and called out, "Brothers, activate your martial spirits." Instantly, 4 glowing soul rings materialized around him, 2 golden yellow and 2 deep violet, each one a testament to the power he'd mastered so far. The stage was set, and the battle for survival had officially begun. The match against Thunder Academy couldn't have been more critical for Shrek Academy, so they made no effort to conceal their strength. Flanderer put out his best 7, Tang San, Dai Mubai, Oscar, Juju King, Xiao Wu, Tai Long, and Zhang Ju. Ma Hongjun, originally slated to play, sat out, his body still recovering from recent injuries. Thunder Academy proved a fearsome opponent. Their roster featured 4 Spirit Masters with soul power above 40, each commanding a Thunder attribute spirit whose raw explosiveness and striking power outmatched anything on Shrek's side. In a tactical gambit, they positioned all 4 of their high-level masters in the back row, willing to sacrifice morale just to probe Shrek Academy's true capabilities. Under Dai Mubai's captaincy, the Shrek team readied themselves. One by one, they released their martial spirits. Tang San's ghostly blue aura, Juju King's graceful feline light, Xiao Wu's coiling serpent energy, and Tai Long's roaring draconic force. Oscar, ever the morale officer, handed out his signature 3 sausages to each teammate, tiny but potent spirit food tokens, then took his place at the far end of the court, Zhang Ju standing firmly at his side. The whistle blew. The crowd fell silent. On that center line, 2 academies, one determined to defend its reputation, the other bent on revealing hidden strengths, prepared to collide in a contest that would test every skill, every spirit, and every ounce of willpower they possessed. Xiao Wu and Juju King fell into formation at Dai Mubai's sides, shielding him like twin sentinels. Tang San positioned himself just behind the trio, ready to support or strike as needed. Before Dai Mubai stood Tai Long, clearly set up as the expendable decoy, and with that, their lines were drawn. End of chapter. Chapter 215, Only by not relying on others can you become stronger. Once the formation was in place, ribbons of blue-silver grass swirled around Tang San's form. As his soul power surged, the blades of grass sprouted faster and thicker than ever before. In the blink of an eye, a cobalt glow pulsed in his palm, and the grass shot forth in an unbroken stream, carpeting the ground at his feet. Then, 5 long tendrils rose silently, coiling around the waists of Dai Mubai, Xiao Wu, Juju King, Oscar, and Zhang Ju, binding them in a living circle with Tang San at its center. Through the living bonds of blue-silver grass, they would truly become a single, harmonious unit. Tang San left Tai Long unbound. He would need the spirit beast's raw power and freedom of movement to shatter the opponent's front lines when the battle began. Before the tournament started, the master had explained the strengths and weaknesses of Thunder attribute martial spirits. Their gift was fearsome offensive might and devastating explosive power. Yet that power demanded a heavy toll, consuming far more soul energy than spirits of any other attribute. Now, with the formation sealed and his comrades linked by his own life force, Tang San braced himself for the coming storm, determined that this time they would emerge victorious, relying on no one but themselves. Tai Long's martial soul is the mighty gorilla, an almost impregnable defender. If every enemy blow is drawn to him, Shrek Academy's odds of victory rise dramatically. No sooner had Shrek Academy revealed its soul techniques than Thunder Academy took the field. Their formation couldn't have been more different. At the front weren't their captain, Yu Tianxin, but 2 soul masters bearing silver-white giant shields, one on each side, ready to guard the line behind them. Between these guardians stood a figure clutching a matching silver-white umbrella, clearly a support specialist. Behind him squared off the 4 strongest fighters from Thunder Academy, their martial souls crackling with raw power: the Thunder Tyrannosaurus, Thunder Eagle, Thunder Spider, and Thunder Pearl. "Brothers, hold firm!" Yu Tianxin's voice rang out cold and commanding, his icy glare locked on Dai Mubai. As the captain of Thunder Academy and scion of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan, he held Shrek Academy's unorthodox tactics in contempt. Cowardly, he thought, hardly worth his serious attention. Yet here they stood on opposite sides of the arena, and there was no turning back. Dai Mubai's eyes flared with indignation. Shrek Academy alone will claim victory in this match. Yu Tianxin let out a cold snort. "There's no point in wasting words. You'll see the truth when we fight." With a faint curl of his lips, he called forth his martial soul, the legendary Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex. A surge of brilliant azure light burst from his forehead, washing over him in a shimmering cascade. Coils of violet-blue electricity crackled to life, writhing around his form like living serpents. The transformation was most dramatic in his arms. His sleeves ripped apart and disintegrated under the force of the energy release, and his limbs instantly lengthened by more than half a foot. Muscle mass bulged, and his forearms grew thick and powerful, sheathed in overlapping scales that glowed with electric blue sheen, majestic and menacing. As Yu Tianxin completed his spirit manifestation, Dai Mubai felt a crushing weight settle in his chest. The pressure of his opponent's spiritual might was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Dai Mubai's challenge rang out across the arena. With a roar, he flexed until his uniform seam split, baring his rippling chest. "Let's see which is stronger, your Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex or my White Tiger." At his side, Tai Long's 4 spirit rings ignited in brilliant light. His massive frame swelled, muscles bulging until his arms more than doubled in size. Thunder Academy's spectators held their breath. This match would decide their school's advancement, and they refused to be outdone by any trickery from the Shrek 7 Devils. Without hesitation, the Thunder team unleashed their spirit modes. Vice Captain Lei Dong's Thunder Spider martial soul stirred to life. He planted his feet, eyes cold and focused. "Third spirit skill, Thundernet," he intoned. 8 jagged bolts of lightning arced from his shoulder blades, knitting together into spider leg-like appendages. His 4 spirit rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, glowed fiercely as he thrust a crackling fist toward Tai Long. But before the electric limb could strike, a flash of silver light streaked across the arena, and every eye followed its sudden, gleaming trail. The next instant, a massive silver net crackled to life around Tai Long, binding him in place. Lei Dong didn't bother to look back. He simply signaled his teammates to join the assault. Ensnared by the tightening thunder net, Tai Long struggled in vain. Each futile tug only caused the shocks to surge through his body, gradually robbing him of control. Above the arena, several bolts of silver lightning converged and struck Tai Long's netted form. Simultaneously, the rest of Thunder Academy's fighters unleashed a coordinated volley of soul attacks. The crowd erupted in cheers as the great fighting soul arena pulsed with energy, the match hurtling toward its climax. Leaning back in her seat, Cheng Xiao observed the scene with interest. "Clever move," she murmured. "They're using Tai Long as a lightning rod, forcing him to soak up every hit while the others prepare their strikes. In effect, this lets them sap Thunder Academy's soul power without exposing their own reserves." Tai Long stood panting at the edge of the court, hair standing on end from static, uniform ripped in places. He caught Cheng Xiao's eye and asked with a wry grin, "So, Cheng Xiao, who do you think will take this match, Shrek Academy or Thunder Academy?" Yu Tianheng, watching from the sidelines, turned his head. "Yeah, I'm curious too. Who's your pick?" Cheng Xiao took a moment before answering, "Shrek Academy." Yu Tianheng raised an eyebrow. "Really? My cousin's strength isn't that far off mine. He's no pushover." Cheng Xiao shrugged lightly. "Raw power alone won't win you the game. Right now, Thunder Academy has no clue what Shrek's strategy is. Honestly, the best move is to assign someone to shadow Tyrone while everyone else watches the other Shrek players closely and counters whatever they throw at us." He paused, a confident smile tugging at his lips. On paper, Thunder should have the advantage, but Shrek's been hiding its true strength from the start. Without knowing their playbook, Thunder Academy will struggle to break through. Yu Tianheng frowned as he considered Cheng Xiao's words. So you're saying Shrek wins with tactics, he said. Then how did you manage to beat them yourself? Cheng Xiao smiled lightly, as if the answer were obvious. I didn't need any tricks, he said. I just crushed them with raw strength. Yu Tianheng stared at him in disbelief. You really are the monster here. They paused their conversation to watch the battle unfolding before them. Tyrone had held out for what felt like ages, but in the end his soul power was overstretched. With a final, shuddering gasp, he collapsed to the ground, eliminated by the Thunder Academy. At that moment, the Shrek team sprang into action. Dai Mubai let out a thunderous roar that seemed to shake the sky. Brothers, charge! He bellowed, surging forward under the protection of his white tiger barrier. A brilliant sheen of white energy glowed around him as he aimed directly for the Soul Master at the head of the Thunder Academy's front line. But before his claw could strike, a figure clad in deep blue armor darted into his path. A single, massive arm, scaled and plated like a dragon's, shot out to intercept the blow, stopping Dai Mubai's attack in its tracks. Under the glowing dome of the Fighting Soul Arena, the air crackled with raw power. Even before Yu Tianxin could reach the center, streaks of blue lightning had already coalesced into a massive claw ova red. In an instant, the two forces collided in a deafening roar, bolts of electricity lancing through the air. Juju Qing and Xiao Wu surged forward without hesitation. From opposite flanks, they struck at Thunder Academy's auxiliary spirit master and their vice captain, Lei Dong. Relying on no one but herself, Xiao Wu's fighting prowess shone in that moment. All four of her spirit rings blazed to life in rapid succession. The third spirit skill, teleportation, the second, charm. Before Lei Dong could mount a defense, a fleeting rose glow bloomed in his eyes, proof that he'd fallen under her spell. With a swift, graceful movement, Xiao Wu shot her legs upward and locked them around Lei Dong's neck. She was just about to unleash her signature soft bone 8-section throw when a new presence tore through the battlefield above them. A figure soared into the air, and in the next heartbeat, a violet flash circled his frame. Two purple spirit rings spun in perfect harmony, and the very atmosphere trembled as thunderous energy pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The balance of the fight was about to shift once more. Xiao Wu's stomach tightened into knots. She knew this was going badly, but it was too late to stop. With a sudden burst of speed, she activated her soft body technique and flung Lei Dong in front of her, using him as a human shield. Above them, Lei Tian hovered in midair, already unleashing his soul skill. Coils of blue-purple lightning writhed around his body as a dark sapphire thunderbolt crackled behind him. Silver arcs snapped across the massive thunder eagle that circled his frame. Centered on Lei Tian, a 5-meter orb of crackling energy swirled into being. Third soul skill, Eagle Eye Lock, he roared. The very sky inside the spirit arena darkened beneath the pull of thunder and lightning. The air grew thick and electric, ready to erupt. Lei Tian's eyes blazed a piercing azure, and the oppressive force of his power made Xiao Wu's clothing snap as if caught in a tempest. A rabbit may be quick on its feet, Lei Tian shouted, his voice echoing around the field, but it cannot outfly an eagle. Your martial soul is a rabbit. Mine is an eagle. You have no chance. With that, the Thunder Eagle's form swelled to colossal proportions, its silver-streaked wings blotting out the gathering storm clouds as it ascended. Lei Tian had studied Xiao Wu's abilities long before this match, and now, as the Eagle Eye Lock's energy surged toward them, he was more than ready. Xiao Wu watched the massive Thunder Eagle grow ever larger overhead, its crackling form powered by condensed thunder and lightning. She still couldn't take to the sky to strike it directly. Her bird-type martial spirit simply wasn't strong enough. But a daring idea flashed through her mind. As long as Lei Dong's soul charm held her, she could break the bond and send both her captive and the spirit flying. Drawing a steady breath, she tilted her head back and sneered into the sky. You think you're safe because I can't fly? I have other ways to fight back. Before Lei Tian's next soul skill could tighten its grip on her mind, Xiao Wu seized Lei Dong's shoulder. Coiling her body like a spring, she drove her thigh into him with explosive force, launching her vice captain straight at the incoming Thunder Eagle. Lei Tian's charm snapped taut, but it was already too late to stop the momentum. The Thunder Eagle, Even as it twisted in midair under the fierce pull, couldn't abandon its target. Its beady eyes locked onto Xiaowu below. Without hesitating, Xiaowu crouched, then vanished with a flicker of light. She'd never intended to face the Thunder Eagle head-on. In that instant, she activated her third soul skill, teleportation, and reappeared out of the creature's path, ready for her next move. The moment Lei Tian reached Lei Dong's side, the lingering trace of Lei Dong's charm shattered. Lei Dong was just about to counterattack when Xiaowu struck him squarely in the face with a sudden, powerful kick. He hurtled backward and slammed into Lei Tian's Thunder Iya, Glee Spirit Beast with full force. There was nothing Lei Tian could do to divert his trajectory. With a deafening crack, Lei Dong collided against the Thunder Eagle's arcing charge and was thrown hard to the ground. Before he could even cry out, an electric current coursed through him, charring his exterior, shocking him from the inside out. Black smoke rose from his body as he went limp, unconscious. "Deputy Captain!" Lei Tian roared, fury igniting the air around him. His soul rings blazed to life as he clenched his fist and lunged at Xiaowu, determined to avenge his fallen comrade. But Xiaowu remained eerily calm. She spun gracefully in midair, and the fourth of her soul rings flared a brilliant gold. Fourth soul skill, Invincible Golden Body. Boom! The recoil of Xiaowu's power slammed Lei Tian to the arena floor, twisting him into an unnatural, crippling pose. The impact gouged a massive crater at the center of the stage. Lei Tian lay there, utterly defeated and incapable of rising again. "Everyone, fall back!" At the crack of thunder, Lei Tian's fighting spirit shattered, and the Thunder Academy squad felt it immediately. Their captain, Yu Tianxin, watched helplessly as his teammates went down around him, struck hard by Tang San's allies. Rage flared in his chest. He was too late to save them. "Stop them! Protect Xiaowu!" Tang San barked, voice calm yet commanding. In response, his first, second, and fourth spirit rings ignited in brilliant blue light. Silver-blue vines shot out of the ground in a dazzling swirl, lashing out and binding 4 of the Thunder Academy fighters, leaving Yu Tianxin the only one free. Meanwhile, a shriek rang out as Juju King pressed her advantage against an auxiliary soul master. At once, Xiaowu's eyes gleamed pink. She vanished in a soft pop and reappeared by the wounded soul master's side, wrapping him in a protective embrace. "Out of my way!" Yu Tianxin roared as he surged forward, lightning crackling across his arms. Crackling dragon-shaped claws of electrified energy lashed at Dai Mubai, who stood in his path. Yu Tianxin knew that if Tang San's team cut off Xiaowu now, the Thunder Academy would be forced into a devastating defeat. With every ounce of will he could muster, he aimed to shatter the blockade and save his captain's honor. Fourth soul skill, Blue Lightning Dragon Speed. Yu Tianxin's heart pounded as he watched Dai Mubai unleash his soul skill to counter the assault. In the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan's younger generation, he and his twin brother, Yu Tianheng, were hailed as twin prodigies. Their strength was nearly identical, but Yu Tianheng always drew more attention for being just a fraction stronger. Determined to close that gap, Tianxin poured every ounce of his energy into training, pushing himself harder than his brother ever had. Long before today's competition began, Tianxin vowed he would defeat his cousin here and cement his own claim as the family's true heir. He refused to let a stranger, and certainly not Dai Mubai, steal his moment. Yet when Dai Mubai unleashed the Blue Lightning Dragon, nothing could stand in its path. A surge of crackling thunder rippled outward, bathing the fighting platform in electric blue light. The thunderous collision shook the arena, drawing gasps and cries from the crowd as the very ground quaked beneath the storm of raw power. Massive chunks of rubble exploded skyward as their titanic collision unleashed a powerful blast. In that very first clash, the White Tiger proved its superiority, decisively defeating the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex. End of chapter. Chapter 216. We at Shrek have always been forbearing. Boom, boom. Through the swirling smoke, Dai Mubai's flustered form hurtled out of the explosion and slammed into the ground. Tang San reacted instantly, commanding the blue-silver grass to whip forward and drag his teammate to safety. Oscar dashed up behind them, pressing a hefty sausage into Dai Mubai's mouth, while Jiangju King, also an auxiliary spirit user, clutched her scepter, poised but holding her strike. It simply wasn't the right moment to intervene. On the opposite side, every student from Thunder Academy was locked in combat. With Dai Mubai temporarily out of action, only Xiao Wu, Juju King, and Tang San remained to defend Shrek. Yet Tang San stayed motionless, carefully watching the battlefield. Before the match had begun, his master had warned him. Although the blue-silver grass had grown tougher, it was inherently weak against lightning. When facing a thunder spirit, his control over the grass would be severely compromised. Master's orders were clear: do not launch a full assault until the opponent's soul power was nearly exhausted and they could no longer channel thunder. Only then would the moment be right for Shrek's final, decisive strike. Tang San knew there was only one way to guarantee victory, and this was it. He hung back, quietly studying the fray, and placed his faith in his teammates. Shrek Academy had already gambled away several matches in the preliminaries, and progress had been rocky. This round was decisive. They could not afford a single misstep. As soon as his comrades had drained the enemy's strength, Tang San would wade in with his own overwhelming power and seal the win, even if he alone remained standing. Right now, the field looked grim for Shrek. Beyond the lone support Soulmaster Xiao Wu and Juzu King had just dispatched, Thunder Academy still had 4 fighters ready to clash. Although Shrek technically held the numerical advantage, they could only deploy 3 active combatants. Oscar and Jiang Zhu, both pure support Soul Masters, were all but useless in a head-to-head fight. That left Xiao Wu and Juju King as Shrek's only true frontline warriors facing 4 opponents. With their first target down, Xiao Wu and Juju King shared a swift, determined glance. In perfect unison, they darted out to engage the 2 enemies positioned on the flanks, their movements a blur of synchronized precision. Xiao Yun's Thunder Pearl martial spirit flared to life as he unleashed his 3rd spirit skill. Lightning arced across the cobalt orb on his wrist, and he thrust his hands forward. Thunder Ring! The pearl hovered free, sending out rippling rings of blue electricity. Rather than attacking outright, those crackling loops raced outward to trap Xiao Wu and Juju King in an electrified cage. In an instant, a bright azure ring snapped into place around Xiao Wu. She stiffened as the ring's electromagnetic pull tugged at her body, slowing her movements and even nullifying her teleportation, though it hadn't yet fully restrained her. Sensing her momentary disadvantage, Xiao Yun pressed his assault. Thunderbind, his first soul ring, ignited in a brilliant flash. He raised the Thunder Pearl, and a jagged bolt of lightning lanced forward toward Xiao Wu's chest. But Xiao Wu was ready. With a swift twist of her wrist, she drew Oscar's flying mushroom sausage from her belt and prepared her counterstrike. With a tearing crack, Xiao Wu twisted her body and evaded the crackling arc of electricity, launching herself straight into the air. How was she still flying? Xiao Yun's eyes widened in shock. His Thunderbead martial spirit was famous for its crushing restraint, but against all reason, Xiao Wu had broken free. Now beyond the bead's radius, she dove toward him at incredible speed. Alarm shot through Xiao Yun's chest. He had one last trump card, his 4th soul ring, meant to be unleashed in concert with Deputy Captain Lei Dong's power. But Lei Dong had been knocked out of the fight, so Xiao Yun decided there was no more time to wait. 4th soul skill, Thunder Mind Attachment, he roared. A surge of blue light burst from the Thunderbead, coalescing into a crackling, ring-shaped charge that hurtled after Xiao Wu. In theory, this skill achieved its full might only when paired with Lei Dong's complementary ability, but desperate times called for desperate measures. With a blinding flash, the electrified ring struck Xiao Wu in midair. Her forward momentum snapped to a halt as crackling energy bound her in place, suspending her motionless above the battlefield. Her slender waist was bound in crackling chains of lightning, each surge of electricity pumping paralyzing power into her limbs. She couldn't move an inch. No good. Xiao Wu's in danger. Juju King's eyes flashed. In a blur of motion, he became a black shadow racing toward her. Before he could reach her, though, another member of the Thunder Academy activated his 3rd soul skill. From his outstretched hands burst countless pale blue motes of energy, each humming with thunder. They swarmed over Xiao Wu and Juju King, weak individually but relentless in their number. In an instant, both fighters were ensnared in a cocoon of lightning. Their muscles locked, and they plummeted from the sky, utterly helpless. Where their hair had once streamed freely, now it hung in brittle, charred clumps. The Thunder Academy members closed in, determined to incapacitate rather than kill. Their attention shifted to Tang San, whose face had drained of all color. Shrek Academy's tactics are certainly unusual, one of them said, voice tinged with wary respect. Yu Tianxin's lips curled in contempt as he stood before Tang San. You actually let two female spirit masters take point? Do you think our Thunder Academy is beneath you? Oscar's brow furrowed with worry as he surveyed the scene. Xiao-san, what should we do now? Tang San didn't answer. Instead, he shifted his gaze to Jiang Zhu. In that instant, she understood his silent command. Drawing on her soul power, she moved beside the wounded Dai Mubai. White mist swirled around her hands as she poured healing energy into his body. The effort drained her soul force at an alarming rate, but she didn't falter. Taking a slow, steadying breath, Tang San turned back to face the four Thunder Academy challengers. His fists clenched at his sides. A faint crimson glow sparked in his eyes, and with a fluid motion, 8 razor-sharp spider spears erupted across his back, each one glinting ominously. An icy chill radiated from him, freezing the air around his shoulders. Yu Tianxin's gaze snapped to those lethal spears, and his expression hardened. "Watch out!" he barked, warning his teammates. "His spirit bone is poisonous. Don't let him get close." The courtyard fell tension thick as the two sides sized each other up, the promise of battle crackling in the air. Beyond the wary standoff, Jiang Zhu continued her desperate healing, while Oscar and the others braced themselves for whatever Tang San would do next. The two auxiliary soul masters, who had barreled toward him just moments before, came to an abrupt halt as Tang San's words rang out. Their soul rings glowed, and arcs of lightning danced along their defensive martial souls, an ominous sign that they'd prepared for any close-quarters assault. They assumed Tang San wouldn't dare clash with their electrified defenses. "Third soul skill, spider web binding," Tang San intoned, voice as cool as ice. He thrust out his hand, and a sphere of violet light blossomed in the air before him. In an instant, it expanded into a 5-meter-wide web, its rings drawn tighter and tighter until it resembled a massive steel trap. But this was no metal. Each filament was a strand of clear blue-silver grass, finer than before, yet stronger than any ordinary fiber. Rushing in behind the spell, Yu Tianxin's eyes never left Tang San. If they could eliminate him now, the Thunder Academy would seize their chance to advance. With a roar, he lunged forward, straight into the heart of Tang San's glimmering spider web. Before Tang San even struck, he'd already foreseen Yu Tianxin's reaction. He gathered his aura and launched a glowing purple orb, which arced gracefully through the air before streaking behind Yu Tianxin toward Xiaoyun. The moment it made contact, the orb fanned out into a fine spiderweb that instantly contracted, binding Xiaoyun so tightly he could hardly breathe. The web's speed, amplified by the Tang sect's concealed weapon technique, was terrifyingly swift. Xiaoyun tried to struggle, but a fierce numbness and burning sting shot through his veins. He'd been poisoned. At the same time, thanks to Jiang Zhu's prompt healing, Dai Mubai had already soared back to full strength. He cracked his neck, 4 soul rings flickering into being around him, then planted his feet and braced himself against the 3 assailants rushing toward Tang San. His raw power bought precious seconds but couldn't hold indefinitely. Calmly, Tang San unleashed his 4th soul skill, Silver Cage. In the blink of an eye, 3 towering cages of blue-silver grass erupted from the ground, their walls humming with binding energy. Yu Tianxin and his 2 companions found themselves trapped, ensnared within the silvery green bars before they could even react. Dai Mubai seized the opening to unleash his 4th soul skill, White Tiger Meteor Shower. Centering the technique on himself, he sent dozens of fist-sized golden spheres hurtling outward. Each orb struck the 3 ensnared opponents with thundering force, blasting Yu Tianxin and her 2 comrades into unconsciousness. Even stripped of their strength, however, they were not free. Tang San moved before they could recover. From his soul rings, the 8-spider lance shot forth like a streak of midnight silk, piercing all 3 bodies in a single, fluid motion. He had never intended to siphon soul power from these human-faced demon spiders. Yet, with Shrek Academy's championship hanging by a thread, he had no choice. The title of promotion was at stake, and he would do whatever it took to secure victory. Don't blame me, Tang San thought, voice cold in his mind. Blame yourselves for standing in our way. Under his absolute control, the 8 spider lance began to draw out their soul energy, siphoning it back into Tang San's own reservoir. In that instant, the balance of power shifted decisively in Shrek Academy's favor, just as he had planned. Tang San's eyes suddenly brightened as he felt his soul power swell. His recent strike had secretly leached energy from his opponent. He was about to press the attack, but then remembered this was an official bout. If anyone noticed him siphoning soul power, he'd become the next target. With great effort, he eased the 8 spider lance back into its sheath. Turning to the referee, his face steely, he asked, "Is the result ready?" In the stands, Yu Tianheng stared at the arena in disbelief. After a long moment, he whispered, "Is Tang San really that formidable? His soul power spikes. They're almost at the 49, maybe even 50 level." Nearby, Cheng Xiao's gaze flicked to the lance now hidden behind Tang San's back, then to the pale faces of Yu Tianheng and the other officials. A thought struck him. Interesting. Could Tang San be using the 8 spider lance's devouring ability on fellow soul masters? Even the referee, clipboard in hand, looked momentarily stunned. After a tense moment of silence, the referee's voice finally rang out across the arena. "Shrek Academy wins!" Almost at once, the Thunder Academy captain leapt down from the stage, hurriedly checked on his fighters, and led them off the field. Thanks to Tang San's cautious test of the 8 spider lance's soul-devouring potential, Yu Tianxin and the other 2 had escaped with their lives. Apart from a massive depletion of their soul power, they showed no further ill effects. What Tang San didn't realize was that Jian Douluo, who had accompanied Ning Fengji to this match, had sensed the sudden drain. From their VIP box, Ning Fengji sent a quiet message over their spirit transmission line. "Uncle Jian, did you feel that too?" Jian Douluo's eyes opened just a fraction. Yes, their soul power collapsed in an instant. Tang San's soul bones are far more intricate than anyone realized. Ning Fengji allowed himself a small, knowing smile. He will stop at nothing to grow stronger. I'd wager he's unlocked the man-faced demon spider's devouring ability. Sword Douluo Jiandan and Ning Fengji spoke in hushed tones behind closed doors, each wary of prying ears. After all, Sword Douluo began, it only stands to reason that Tang San's new soul bone, taken from that evil murderer, must grant him at least some of its dark powers. Ning Fengji's gaze sharpened. Uncle Jian, I'm certain Tang San won't let this chance slip by. Before long, he'll be siphoning soul energy from other academy students. Of course, it's just a suspicion, for now. A cruel light flickered in Jiandan's eyes. Once someone feels the rush of rapidly growing soul power, he said coldly, they can never settle back into ordinary cultivation. Frankly, I don't care what he does, except this. If he dares harm Rongrong, I swear, even if Haotian Douluo himself shows up, I will kill him on the spot. Fengji gave a slight shake of his head, his voice measured. Uncle Jian, let's keep silent for the moment. Tang San's conduct hasn't yet crossed any clear line. We should wait, let him slip up on his own, and then we'll have the perfect pretext to strike. Sword Douluo Jiandan closed his eyes, the tension in his features easing. Very well, Fengji, I understand. Meanwhile, in the Shrek Academy lounge, Flanders stood and beamed at Liu Erlong. Erlong, I'll take the first match. Leave the little monsters to you and Xiaogang. Liu Erlong's brow furrowed in confusion. Boss Fu? What are you doing? Flanders chuckled, tapping the oversized Shrek Academy emblem on his chest. Haven't you noticed how well our monsters have performed? Now that we've advanced, advertisers will be lining up. I need to lock in some new sponsorship deals. He straightened, pride shining in his eyes. With Shrek Academy showing its strength, I can negotiate higher ad fees and pad our coffers at the same time. Meanwhile, on the soul fighting stage, Shrek's candidates were already in position. Huang Yuan stood firmly by Zhang Zhu's side, ready to back her every move. Jingling cradled the unconscious Xiao Wu and Juju King gently in her arms, with Oscar hovering protectively nearby. And Dai Mubai carried Tai Long on his back, his expression set with determination. Dai Mubai squared his shoulders and glanced over at the injured Juju King. He'd wanted to carry her on his back after the match. He even tried to reassure her, saying he'd changed, but she had refused him flatly. Not wanting to look desperate, he swallowed his pride and instead bent down to lift the eager Tai Long onto his back. The little dragon chirped happily, settling comfortably between Daimubai's shoulder blades. When the Shrek team filed back into the lounge, Ma Hongjun practically tackled Tang San in a bear hug. "Saner, that was incredible. Your final combo with Boss Dai was spectacular." Tang San returned the hug with a relaxed smile. As he stepped back, he glanced at Daimubai and then at the others. "Against overwhelming power," he said quietly, "even the best spirit techniques sometimes aren't enough. If this plan fails, I'll make sure everyone feels the full force of the 8 spider spears, and I'll open these blind fools' eyes to the fact that Shrek Academy never quits. Trust me." Daimubai strode over, a fierce grin on his face, and slapped Tang San on the shoulder. "Xiao-san, that was brilliant. If it weren't for your strategy, we wouldn't even be through to the next round." Tang San nodded confidently. "Relax, Boss Dai. We'll steamroll every challenge that comes our way." "Exactly," Daimubai said, his eyes flashing. "It's time we showed them what real power is and reminded the world why you never bet against Shrek Academy." Chapter 217, No Good End for the Dog Licker. Silver moonlight filtered down over the secluded attic of 7 Stars Academy, casting the old building in a quiet, ethereal glow. All was still, until a flash of blue cut through the darkness. A figure in azure appeared above the treetops, alighting on a sturdy branch with barely a sound. His cool, watchful eyes fixed on a single window in the attic, and a faint ripple of wind-attributed soul power, pale cyan in hue, pulsed around him. Swoosh! Before he could move, dozens of blue-silver grass stalks burst from the earth below, writhing up the tree trunk to ensnare him. "Blue-silver grass?" the interloper murmured, surprise flashing across his face. With a graceful push of his toes, he shattered the grasping blades, transforming his body into a swirl of green wind that vanished from sight. In the next instant, he solidified atop a nearby boulder, landing lightly as though it were solid ground all along. He straightened, assessing his surroundings. "Who are you?" he called into the darkness beyond the attic window. "And what are you doing here?" A dark blue silhouette detached itself from the shadows. In 3 lithe bounds, the newcomer stood beside him on the rock. Moonlight revealed a woman garbed in a flowing dress of deep indigo. A mysterious aura clung to her like mist. Her eyes met his, unreadable and cool. "You ask who I am," she said, voice soft yet edged with steel. "First tell me why you've come." Feng Xiaotian's lip curled in a wry half-smile. "I might ask you the same." He paused, studying her. "But since we're already acquainted by moonlight and magic grass, perhaps introductions should come next." The woman inclined her head, replying with a single enigmatic word, "Perhaps." And in that silent exchange, the night around them seemed to hold its breath. "It matters not who I am, but who you choose to be." Ah Yin's gentle voice drifted through the stillness. In the next heartbeat, thousands of azure-silver grass blades roared outward, coalescing into towering spears that hovered in the air, each tipped with a cold, unforgiving light. Feng Xiaoqian's pupils contracted. He sensed no trace of soul power from the woman before him, yet those long, razor-bright spears pressed in like a death sentence. One misstep, and he would be nothing more than a bloodstain on the ground. "Junior brother Feng Xiaotian of Divine Wind Academy," Ah Yin continued, voice calm as a summer breeze, "arrived so late to petition brother Cheng Xiao." Cornered and outmatched, Feng Xiaotian bowed hastily and explained his purpose. This silent woman was clearly a hidden ace of 7 Stars Academy, yet her mastery of the blue-silver grass spirit defied all reason. He stared at the floating overlord spears, mind-racing. Blue-silver grass? A supposedly weak, purely controlling martial spirit, Tang San of Shrek Academy wielded it as a finesse tool, not a weapon of mass destruction. When had this useless grass become the pinnacle of offensive power? As the icy light shimmered on the spear's edges, Feng Xiaoqian realized he had underestimated her, and the true potential of the blue-silver grass itself. Feng Xiaoqian pressed his hand against the cold stone wall, steadying himself in the middle of the night. Moonlight streamed through the narrow corridor, and at the end of it, a lone figure stood waiting. "Feng Xiaoqian," Cheng Xiao's voice rang out softly. "Why aren't you asleep? What brings you here at this hour?" Before Feng Xiaoqian could answer, a faint rustle sounded behind him. In an instant, a shadow detached itself from the darkness, a yin. Her slender form glided forward, and with fluid precision she retracted each of her blue-silver overlord spears until only one remained. She buried it tip first into the stone floor beside Cheng Xiao, its cobalt sheen catching the moonlight. "A yin," Cheng Xiao murmured, a single nod his only acknowledgement. In a nearly silent gesture of respect, she bowed, then slipped away as quietly as she had come. Left alone in the corridor, the two young men faced each other. Cheng Xiao crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "Well, you wouldn't have come all this way just to admire Seven-Star Academy's talent pool." Feng Xiaoqian drew a breath, hesitated, and then blurted out his heart's concern. "Stay away from Huowu. I like her." Cheng Xiao's brow furrowed in genuine confusion. "And what does that have to do with me?" The chill of the night pressed in around them. Feng Xiaoqian's eyes glinted with earnest resolve. "You've known Huowu longer than anyone. I don't want you, or anyone, to hurt her. She's important to me." Cheng Xiao studied him for a long moment, arms still folded, then finally relaxed his stance. "I see," he said quietly. "You're afraid I might?" He let the question trail off, his expression unreadable. Feng Xiaoqian shook his head, the tension easing from his shoulders. "I trust you. That's why I came straight to you." Moonlight flickered across their faces. In the hushed corridor, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Feng Xiaotian ground his teeth. "It's not that I didn't want to come see you, but Huowu said she'd only go out with me if I beat you." Cheng Xiao raised an eyebrow, scratching at his ear. "And?" "I came to challenge you," Feng said, voice low and determined. "If I win, Huowu will agree to date me." Cheng cracked a smile and flexed his fingers. "You want to fight? Fine, let's do this." "Bring it on," Feng shouted. He swept his arms in a swift motion, summoning a pale blue wind blade that hummed as it solidified in midair. With a fierce whoosh, the blade sliced toward Cheng. Cheng Xiao gripped his blue-silver overlord spear and planted his feet firmly on the ground. In a heartbeat, he blurred into a motion so fast it left only a faint afterimage. Then, bang! His spear slammed into Feng. The impact drove Feng backward, sending him sprawling through the air, struggling to regain his balance as he flew away. Feng Xiaotan, captain of Kamikaze Academy and a prodigy with innate full soul power, refused to be bested so easily. He drifted in midair for a moment, then smoothly adjusted the airflow around him until he floated perfectly still. "That force! No wonder you're so terrifyingly strong," he murmured, eyes narrowing as he regarded Cheng Xiao, who advanced steadily, spear in hand. Tomorrow's tournament between Seven Stars Academy and Shenfeng Academy was on the line. If he, their captain, could be beaten by Cheng Xiao now, what chance would his team have? There was no option but to press on. Cheng Xiao stopped a few paces away. With a sudden yank, he pulled his spear free, then slammed it into the ground. A shockwave of oppressive energy rippled outward, lifting dust and debris into the air. "Ready for another round?" Cheng Xiao asked, a calm challenge in his voice. Feng Xiaotian drew a deep breath, slamming his feet together and straightening his back. "Let's fight," he said. "I won't back down, not for me, but for my sister, Huowu." Cheng Xiao's eyes narrowed. "Stubborn," he muttered, his voice low and edged with steel. In an instant, a chilling, murderous aura erupted around him. He stamped his foot, blurring into a shadow as he rocketed toward Feng Xiaotian. Feng Xiaotian barely had time to brace himself. Cheng Xiao's aura hammered into him, instantly sapping half his power and filling him with an overwhelming terror. In that moment, Feng Xiaotian saw nothing but a demon sprung from hell, poised to snuff out his life. With a deafening crack, Feng Xiaotian's body went flying like a kite cut loose. He carved a 10-meter groove into the ground before crashing against the wall. Pain exploded in his chest, and he spat a mouthful of blood, his throat burning fiercely. Cheng Xiao stood over him, arms folded. "Train harder," he said coolly. "If you stay this weak, women will never take you seriously." Without another word, he turned and melted into the night. After a long moment, Feng Xiaotian pressed a hand to his battered chest and forced himself upright. Gasping for breath, he murmured, "For Sister Huowu, how could I let myself fall so far?" This is so humiliating," Feng Xiaotian muttered under his breath. "But do we even have to go ahead with tomorrow's match against Seven Stars Academy?" He paused, brow furrowing. "If I couldn't beat him, what chance do the others have?" He gave a wry smile, let out a low sigh, and cast one last glance up toward the attic. With a tap of his boot on the ground, he folded his wings neatly behind his back and melted into the darkness. No sooner had he disappeared than Cheng Xiao let his gaze drop, closed his eyes, and resumed his training. End of chapter. Chapter 218. Only my teacher understands me. Dawn crept over Tiando City, banishing the last shadows of night and breathing new life into its streets. Merchants began to open their stalls, and everywhere young soul masters surged forth, converging on a single destination, the Tiando Great Soul Arena. The climax of the all-continental high-level Soul Master Elite competition was at hand, and excitement crackled through the air. Though the final matches were still to be fought, the 5 academies advancing to the next stage had already been decided. Leading the pack was the formidable 7 Stars Academy, followed in order by Divine Wind, Blazing Fire, Tian Shui, and the daring Shrek Academy. 2 of the lesser-known schools, Thunder Academy and Elephant Armor Academy, had fallen short early on, while Divine Wind and Tian Shui had both succumbed to 7 stars in their head-to-head showdowns. After a quick breakfast at 7 Stars Academy, Cheng Xiao gathered with his teammates and set out on the familiar walk to the arena. Word of their success had spread like wildfire, and wherever they passed, curious gazes and whispered rumors trailed in their wake. But Cheng Xiao paid them little mind. All that mattered was the battle ahead, and the one person who truly understood him, his teacher. Cheng Xiao couldn't ignore the dozens of eyes burning into him, and an odd discomfort crept over him. Noticing his unease, Ye Lingling, who'd been trailing just behind, let out a soft, amused laugh. Her grin might have been innocent enough, but it immediately drew the attention of every man in the vicinity. Under a relentless barrage of stares, Cheng Xiao and his companions wound their way through the packed corridors of the grand arena until they reached their assigned seats. Cheng Xiao slid into his chair and glanced across the arena. He spotted Feng Xiaochen already settled among the Xinfeng Academy supporters. The moment their eyes met, Feng Xiaochen waved broadly, an over-enthusiastic gesture that promptly puzzled Cheng Xiao. "I didn't mess up last night, did I?" Cheng Xiao whispered, scratching the back of his head in confusion. Before Feng Xiaochen could reply, Duguyan leaned in from the next seat. "Cheng Xiao, Grandpa just told me that Xinfeng Academy has forfeited the next match." "Forfeited?" Cheng Xiao echoed, his eyebrows shooting up as he tried to swallow his surprise. Cheng Xiao leaned back in his seat, a calm smile on his face. He wasn't bragging, he simply knew his own strength. After all, Feng Xiaoqian had shown up last night and walked away with his pride in tatters. "Cheng Xiao," Duguyan said abruptly, "Feng Xiaoqian really did come find you after the preliminaries, didn't he?" "Yeah," Cheng Xiao replied with a shrug. "He showed up, got trounced, then slunk off." Duguyan grinned and rapped him on the shoulder. "No wonder he threw in the towel. Guess he finally realized he couldn't beat you." Cheng Xiao chuckled. "Better this way. Saves us the hassle." Their easy banter was drowned out by the roar of the crowd. All around the Grand Fighting Spirit Arena, every seat was filled. It was the penultimate day of the all-continental high-level Soul Master Elite competition, and excitement crackled through the air like static. A referee strode onto the central platform, lifted a hand for silence, and waited until the thunderous cheering subsided. Then, gripping his megaphone, he swept his gaze over the packed stands and boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, after more than a month of grueling preliminaries, the Tiando City region's penultimate day of the all-continental high-level Soul Master Elite competition is officially underway. Prepare yourselves for battles that will shake the heavens." The crowd erupted again, rising to their feet as the first match of the day was about to begin. "From now on, when your college's name is called, please take the stage immediately," the referee announced, his voice firm. "Exceed the allotted time, and you'll forfeit the match." He hardly needed more words. After a brisk rundown of the rules, he raised the mic to begin the first pairing. First match, 7-Star College versus Kamikaze College. A hush fell over the audience. Seconds ticked by, then the referee's tone turned final. "Kamikaze College forfeits." Murmurs rippled through the stands. The host barely waited for the reaction to fade before moving on. Next, Xiangjia College versus Oakland College. At the sound of their names, The two teams, each having trained for weeks, stepped onto the fighting spirit stage from opposite sides. Yet with both already eliminated from contention, neither had much to prove. Lacking any incentive to shine, their bout dragged on in a half-hearted exchange of standard moves. Within minutes, it was over. That opening set the tone. One by one, colleges that had fallen out of the running came forward, offered up token efforts, or simply declined to compete. What had promised to be a showcase of fierce rivalries dissolved into a parade of forfeits and perfunctory matches. By the time the final match of the round concluded, the crowd was left restless, eager for excitement that never came. Except for Shrek College, renowned for its bold, aggressive tactics, the other academies had treated the trial as a friendly exchange, eager to swap techniques and wrap up their tasks quickly. Cheng Xiao watched the assembled Soulmasters. On the surface, they appeared to focus on the challenge, but behind the scenes, they were all jockeying for advantage. He shook his head. Without the crucible of true life-and-death combat, no one could claim real strength. Of course, the Douluo world's relative stability made such ruthlessness rare. Elsewhere, they'd be branded renegades on sight. The 20th match, 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School versus Tianshui College, the referee announced. A hush fell over the arena. Dozens of eyes shifted to Cheng Xiao. Everyone wondered if he would once again defeat the famed beauties of Tianshui College without mercy. Then, to his astonishment, a crisp voice echoed through the silence. Tianshui College forfeits. Cheng Xiao, already stepping toward the spirit stage, came to an abrupt halt. Forfeit? Before a single spirit skill had been unleashed? He turned toward the Tianshui College champions in disbelief. What could have prompted such an unexpected surrender, especially when the contest hadn't even begun? The referee stared at the Tianshui College delegation in disbelief. Are you really forfeiting the match? Tianshui's captain rose to his feet, his voice calm. Yes, we're officially withdrawing. Shenfeng College has already bowed out, and we see no benefit in facing Qixing at this time. A stunned silence fell over the arena. Then the crowd exploded into whispered chatter. The referee held up his hand for order and announced, by forfeit, Qixing College is declared the winner. He shook his head with mild regret. He'd been looking forward to a showdown between Qixing and Tianshui, but the contest was over before it began. Still, such walkovers weren't unheard of. After all, Shenfeng had surrendered first. Tianshui's concession, though puzzling, caused no great uproar. From the Qixing bench, Duguyan rose and slapped Cheng Xiao on the shoulder, a broad grin on his face. With you here, we win without even lifting a finger, he teased. Cheng Xiao returned the smile, but inside, he wondered what lay behind Tianshui's sudden decision, because in this game of souls, there are always deeper strategies at play. Yu Tianheng gave a wry smile. Yes, the outcome was sealed before we began, but at least we've avoided unnecessary complications. Inside the Shrek rest area, Tang San sat alone, head bowed in quiet reflection. The door slid open, and Master stepped in without a sound. Seeing Tang San's troubled posture, he sighed softly and walked over. Xiao San, Master said, settling a hand on his shoulder. If you keep doubting yourself, how do you expect to win the championship? Tang San lifted his eyes, voice low. Master, I'm afraid Cheng Xiao's strength outshines mine at every turn. Ma, Stir shook his head gently. Don't sell yourself short. Your power isn't weak. Cheng Xiao simply has brilliance that's easier to see right now. He gave Tang San's shoulder an encouraging squeeze. But remember this, I've never ceased believing in you. You're the son of Haotian Douluo, born with a pair of martial spirits so rare they appear only once every 100 years. Those words settled into Tang San's heart. No one had stood by him so unwaveringly. If his master believed he could turn the tide, then he must. He would pour every ounce of strength he had into claiming that championship, not just for himself, but to prove his teacher's faith was well placed. Chapter 219. To Devour or Not to Devour. Once Tianshui College conceded defeat, the preliminaries at the Great Fighting Soul Arena drew to a close with a greatly simplified awards ceremony. All the teams that failed to advance were dismissed, leaving only the top 5 squads to occupy the VIP seats. At the host's call, the captains of those 5 teams stepped onto the raised dais. They arranged themselves in neat rows, their expressions polite but restrained, and waited quietly for the ceremony to begin. From his position near the center, Cheng Xiao felt the intensity of Dai Mubai's gaze drilling into him, but he paid it no mind. After all, he told himself, he was as vulnerable as a sickly cat. He had no desire to provoke a confrontation. "Ladies and gentlemen," boomed the host's voice over the arena's speakers, "it is my honor to present our awards. Please welcome His Majesty Emperor Shuiye of the Tiando Empire, the revered Ning sect master of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, and His Excellency Salas, Platinum Bishop of the Spirit Hall." A ripple of applause ran through the crowd as the three dignitaries stepped forward. One by one, they presented each captain with a heavy pouch containing 10,000 gold soul coins, and tucked inside every pouch was a carefully handwritten letter, bearing the personal seal of the empire. As the captains bowed in gratitude and received their awards, anticipation crackled in the air. With the preliminaries behind them and generous rewards secured, they now looked ahead to the true test, the promotion matches that lay just beyond the arena's gates. Emperor Shuiye's gaze swept over the 5 college representatives lined up before him, lingering for a moment on Cheng Xiao before he allowed himself a small, proud smile. "Congratulations to all of you," he began, his voice resonant in the silent hall. "As supreme ruler of the Tiando Empire, I am immensely proud. You represent the very hope of our future." He paused, then continued, "In recognition of your achievements, I hereby grant each of you the title of Viscount. All other participants today will receive the title of Baron. Upon graduation, you will be allotted your fiefs, and the doors of the Empire will always be open to you." A ripple of astonishment ran through the crowd. Saras was the first to recover her composure. Stepping forward, she dared to voice what everyone else was thinking. "Your Majesty," she said respectfully, "with all due respect, this seems unprecedented. In past competitions, even in the Xingluo Empire, no one has ever been rewarded with noble titles for a preliminary round. Indeed, in both the Tiando and Xingluo empires, noble ranks, Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, and so on, were reserved for those who had rendered truly extraordinary service. To award 5 viscountcies after only one phase of the trials was unthinkably generous. Whispers spread through the assembly, but none dared question the emperor further. Only Emperor Shuiye knew the real reason behind his decision. It was all part of his strategy to secure Cheng Xiao's loyalty. And with those 5 simple words, "I confer upon you," he had set that plan into motion. He couldn't simply bestow the title on Cheng Xiao. Doing so would only draw fierce criticism. The other proposals were nothing more than a convenient smokescreen. Emperor Shuiye's cold eyes flicked to Bishop Saras. "Bishop, why are you meddling in the Empire's internal affairs? My granting of an honorary title has nothing to do with you, or with the Empire for that matter." He paused, his voice taking on a carefully measured tone. "That said, if your team wins the championship in the next match, I will raise every member's rank by 1 level, add royal to your academy's name, and grant full imperial funding." Bishop Saras bowed his head, forcing a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your Majesty honors us," he replied, though his pale expression betrayed his displeasure. In truth, Shuiye had no inkling that Cheng Xiao was secretly an imperial agent, a fact that made the emperor all the more wary of offering even a token reward from Tiando. As the empire's platinum bishop, Saras easily discerned the emperor's hidden concerns. But for now, those thoughts would remain unspoken. His first duty was clear. He must inform His Holiness the Pope of this development without delay. Saras rose from his seat and inclined ever so slightly toward the throne. "Your Majesty, I have urgent business to attend to. Please excuse me." Without waiting for a reply, he turned on his heel and left the VIP pavilion in swift, measured strides. Emperor Shuiye watched him go, a flicker of anger darkening his gaze. Leaning close to Ningfengji, he murmured so quietly that only the 2 of them could hear. "Saras grows more arrogant with each passing day. Is Wuhun Hall preparing to pick a fight with us?" Ningfengji merely smiled, offering no answer. Though his Qibao Liuli sect had stood firmly with the Tiando royal family, he would never dare cross Wuhan Hall on behalf of the empire. A shrewd merchant knows exactly where to draw the line. After a heartbeat, Emperor Shuiye smoothed his expression and addressed the assembled nobles and dignitaries once more. For our next promotion match, we will remain within the Empire's borders, but we're changing venues. Instead of the Tiando Grand Fighting Soul Arena, the contest will take place in the Royal Hunting Grounds. I trust this new setting will prove just as exhilarating. In exactly 1 month, Emperor Shuiye announced, his gaze sweeping over the assembled fighters. Teams from the principalities and kingdoms who have passed the preliminaries will face you in the promotion matches. I expect even more thrilling performances from each of you in the weeks ahead. With that, he turned and departed alongside Ning Fengji. No sooner had they vanished than the great fighting soul arena exploded in applause, a roaring tide of sound that shook the very walls. Spectators leapt to their feet, riveted by the sight of the 5 college champions occupying the VIP seats. Envy and awe shone in countless eyes, especially as they lingered on Cheng Xiao. Throughout this preliminary round, his name had echoed across every corner of Tiando City, a testament to the brutal power he wielded. Here, strength commanded respect, and Cheng Xiao had proven himself in spades. As cheers and applause filled the Colosseum, the 5 representatives rose in unison. They offered a brief salute to the crowd, then strode down from the VIP pavilion to rejoin their college teams, proud of their victories and ready to prepare for the challenges yet to come. Yu Tianheng bounded back into the 7-Star Academy's team area, clapping Cheng Xiao on the shoulder. "Cheng Xiao, you did an incredible job in the competition," he announced, eyes shining. "Tonight, we celebrate. I've booked the largest private room in Tiando City's top hotel through my family's connections. No one's leaving sober." "Absolutely. No one leaves until we're drunk," Yu Feng echoed with a whoop. Cheng Xiao let out a tired but genuine smile. "All right, let's drink until we can't stand." Amid cheers and laughter, the 7-Star contingent spilled out of the roaring Soul Arena into the cool evening air, eager for their victory feast. Night had fallen over Shrek Academy. In a secluded courtyard, Tang San sat cross-legged on a smooth stone slab, deep in meditation. Moments later, he opened his eyes. He stared at his outstretched hands, then curled his fingers into tight fists. A flash of fury sparked in his gaze. Why did you absorb the man-faced demon spider?" He growled under his breath. "After gaining its soul power, my cultivation speed should have soared, but it slowed instead." A tense silence settled around him as he fought to reconcile the unexpected setback with the promise of his new soul ability. "Do I have no choice but to rely on the soul power I gained from devouring evil soul beasts?" Tang San muttered under his breath. Not long ago, in the depths of the Sunset Forest, he had inadvertently activated the 8 Spider Spee, RS Soul Devour ability. The power surge had thrilled him, but it had also filled him with dread. If anyone learned that he was boosting his cultivation by eating soul beasts, the entire mainland would be scandalized, and he'd be driven into exile. Yet without that surge of power, he stood little chance of catching up in soul strength. His raw physical ability alone wouldn't be enough to defeat the other academies and secure the championship for Shrek Academy. Worse still, the Wuhun Palace specialized in eradicating such forbidden techniques. His father was already locked in bitter conflict with them. If they discovered Tang San's secret, let alone his true identity, they would stop at nothing to hunt him down. Clenching his fists, Tang San stared at the horizon. How could he possibly break this deadlock? He loathed the idea of devouring soul beasts just to advance his cultivation. Yet if he wanted enough spirit power to win the championship, he had no choice. In the end, the only way forward was clear. He would have to feed on soul-devouring beasts. Chapter 220. The Evil Soul Beast's Demise. Tang San stood on the brink of indecision, torn over what he must do next. Then, as if responding to his inner turmoil, the barely visible trident mark on his forehead pulsed with a soft, pale light. From the depths of his mind, a calm, measured voice began to speak. "Tang San, it is not evil to grow stronger by devouring soul beasts. The true sin lies in preying upon the innocent instead of hunting those who would prey on others. The human-faced demon spider is a creature of pure malice, an evil killer that feeds on the lives of other beings to boost its own power. As a soul master, you have every right to slay it and absorb its essence. Such a predator deserves nothing less. As for those soul beasts that exist only to consume life, they have no claim to mercy." You did not err by killing the human-faced demon spider. Your hesitation was your only misstep. So long as you refuse to feed upon kind-hearted soul beasts for your own advancement, your actions remain just. Release yourself from doubt. Follow the path your conscience lights for you. Even if others judge you wrong, if your heart decrees it right, then it is right. As the voice receded into silence, Tang San's confusion melted away. In its place rose a clear certainty. He would do what he knew was just, no matter the cost. Tang San's eyes gleamed with purple light as a sudden realization struck him. Of course, he murmured to himself, training on evil soul beasts is its own kind of good deed. If I, Tang San, use my spirit beasts to hunt down those wicked creatures, then everything I do truly is justice. With that thought firmly in place, Tang San knew exactly what he had to do. He would use the entire month of free time ahead to track and devour evil soul beasts. In doing so, he'd both strengthen his soul power and carry out a righteous mission. A thrill of excitement fluttered through him, but he forced himself to stay calm. Tomorrow morning, he would explain everything to Master, then promptly set off from Shrek Academy. This month wasn't just for training. It was a chance to hunt as many evil soul beasts as possible and turn their power to his advantage. He glanced up at the night sky, tucked his enthusiasm away, and spoke quietly to his friend. Cheng Xiao, once I break through to mid-50 levels of soul power, we'll train together again. Meanwhile, in a modest inn-room in Tiando City, Cheng Xiao leaned back against the headboard after a hearty meal, his stomach pleasantly full. A sudden sneeze shook him, and he reached up to rub his nose, blinking sleepily. He stretched again, waiting for Tang San's news, and for their next adventure to begin. A moment later, a green-robed figure slipped through the hotel's entrance. Without a word, Douluo bounded up the stairs and found Cheng Xiao finishing his meal in a private booth. He signaled urgently, and the two slipped into a quieter corner of the building. Cheng Xiao looked up, concern knitting his brow. "Old Poison, what's wrong?" he asked quietly. Douluo's summons always meant trouble. Douluo's face was unusually grave as he leaned in. "I've been watching Wuhun Palace's movements," he began. "Over the past few days, they've quietly transferred key cardinals out of all the major cities. It's too coordinated to be ordinary reshuffling. They're preparing for something big." He paused, meeting Cheng Xiao's eyes. "I suspect someone has leaked the truth of Tang San's lineage, his status as Tang Hao's son. The grudge between Wuhun Palace and Tang Hao runs deep. If Bibidong learns of it," he added in a low growl, "she'll strike without hesitation." Renowned as a titled Douluo, Douluo's intelligence network was unmatched, and these transfers ringed alarm bells in his mind. Cheng Xiao absorbed the news in silence, then gave a slow, determined nod. "Understood. We'll make our preparations," he said. It was only natural that Wuhun Palace would soon make its move. What puzzled Cheng Xiao, though, was how little his own position seemed to matter. After he was firmly allied with Wuhun Palace now that Douluo and Yueguan had patched things up. Surely Douluo would have given him a heads-up about any major operation? "You're right," Douluo murmured, as if reading his thoughts. He let out a quiet sigh. "A few days ago, I met Yueguan in secret. He told me the Pope has commissioned a clandestine mission. There's something happening in the Soul Beast Forest up north, and the Holy Dragon Sect has been ordered to investigate." "The Soul Beast Forest?" Cheng Xiao frowned at the words. "That remote, frozen wasteland is all but impenetrable to ordinary cultivators. What could possibly lie there worth sending a whole sect to explore?" Douluo exchanged a look with him, equally perplexed. Cheng Xiao's mind raced. Could this have anything to do with the recent massacre in the far north, the brutal slaughterers he'd encountered? Was Bibidong targeting them because of him? It seemed unlikely. With the Snow Emperor's current cultivation level and his home field advantage in those icy reaches, no outside force, not even one backed by the Pope, stood much chance of gaining the upper hand. Cheng Xiao's thoughts raced as he pondered the reports from the far north. The Ice Emperor and the Titan Snow Demon King weren't merely powerful. Without the entire Wuhun Palace mobilizing its greatest experts, subduing even one of these three legendary beasts would be next to impossible. And yet, the palace had thrown its full weight into their capture. Something about that didn't add up. Why invest such resources if this were just another routine hunt? Lost in speculation, Cheng Xiao sensed a sudden shift in his consciousness. A wizened old man, long white hair, deeply lined face, eyes dancing with madness, materialized in his mind's eye. Two terse titles surfaced with the apparition: Snowman King, King of Cold. The instant those words registered, everything clicked into place. If he himself could cross over to the Douluo Continent and awaken the Shadow King's martial spirit, then perhaps other kings had been drawn here in the same way. But Cheng Xiao paused. Weren't all those monarchs already wiped out by Cheng Xiao? Could they somehow still exist, trapped in a parallel timeline, only now breaking into his world because of the Shadow King's awakening? He had long known that each king wielded unique, unfathomable powers. If even one of them had slipped through into his realm, the consequences could be catastrophic. As the realization settled over him, Cheng Xiao steeled himself. He would need every ounce of his cunning and all the Wuhun Palace's might to face whatever specters of the past were stirring in the frozen wastes. It wasn't difficult for them to slip through time. Thanks to the portal's power, they could cross into any world or even other planes of existence without so much as a stumble. Drawn by the promise of the Shadow King's might, they had every reason to probe deeper into the unknown. Douluo Bo curled his lip in confusion. "What are you talking about? Snowman King? Cold King?" he snapped. He'd spent decades mastering soul power on the Douluo Continent, where only the most formidable practitioners earned the title Douluo. He'd never heard of any kings among soul beasts or spirit masters. Certainly not a snowman king in the frozen north. Cheng Xiao regarded him coolly before lowering his voice. "Old Poison," he said, using Douluo Bo's infamous nickname. "What if I told you that, at your current level, you couldn't even hold your own against the Shadow King? Would you believe me?" Douluo Bo's lip curled in a derisive smile. "What are you babbling about, kid? I am Douluo Bo, the poisoned Douluo who commands the entire realm of toxins, a level 93 titled Douluo. Who could possibly slay me with ease?" Cheng Xiao only shrugged. With a single gesture, his form dissolved into a black blur and streaked toward the sunset forest beyond Tiando City's walls. Before he vanished, he called back over his shoulder, "Old Poison, I'll be training intensely for a while. When the next match begins, you coward, now where to find me." Douluo Bo watched the empty air for a long moment, his confidence faltering. A cold dread crept up his spine. Could the boy have spoken the truth? And if so, what kind of power would be required to fell a titled Douluo so effortlessly? Some forgotten legend, perhaps a god in mortal guise.